We've been reading about it, me and a couple of my friends, and it's
You
like,
know what? I have actively, just like the disease itself, I've stayed away from the news about it because I've lived through the pig flu.
the
I
SARS.
lived through
Yeah.
N1A1.
I'm
I lived through the ACDC virus. All this stuff that
Yeah.
they announce and they're like it's the end of the world. You know what? These doctors are smart people. Hey, update. Doctors are smart. Welcome, boys and girls of the internet. You're tuned in right now because you have nothing better to do. You're just like us, stuck in your house. Everyone's a Twitch streamer now. Welcome to the best stream. We've been streaming before it became a cool thing for your teachers to do. We are the DweeBros podcast. I'm your host, Zach, aka Dweebo, aka the quarantined one. We have two over here, depending on what world you live in.
This is
Kim
Travis.
Jong-un.
Travis
sorry.
reporting in from North Korea. There is no virus here.
Yeah, they're pretty good, aren't they, over there?
We've got it locked down.
Yeah.
I'm coming in from outer space. The world's looking great. Good news, Corona hasn't reached us yet.
That's good.
If you're really concerned about it, catch a a spaceship up the moon, Mars. You're good. Like,
What
safe.
would happen to the coronavirus, like viruses in space? Does anybody know, like the?
I'm reporting
They
from
would
up here.
mutate
There's-
rapidly.
Yeah,
Really?
heavy radiation. No air at all. The fact I'm breathing up here is actually quite beautiful.
Yeah,
Jacob, you look a little blue.
I'm not feeling the greatest.
Yeah.
Losing some air.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I want to let's get the elephant out of the room. Last podcast. Perhaps I'll put a clip on this at the beginning or right now. We were kind of unanimous in saying this looks kind of spooky, but we went through the swine flu. We went through this. Boy, man, I've never been so wrong in my entire life. And it just kind of a switch got flipped. I felt like I even put a tweet when all this kind of like hit started to feel kind of spooky. Was the day we were all like, hey, this is what we're going to get through it. We survived other stuff. And then the next day, all these articles started coming out. I was like, what's going on here? And I put on Twitter, I was like, yesterday, hey, we were so good today. And I put the Last of Us picture, Joel and Ellie on there. So, man, it just flipped really quick.
It always does.
So let's kind of back up and I mean, probably people are kind of maybe tired of hearing about the coronavirus, but when did it become a turning point for you? Like what kind of struck you as like, uh-oh.
Oh, we're screwed.
Yeah.
I mean, Travis, you can go first. I mean, I like getting personal. Let's talk about our lives a little bit, boys.
Yeah, I mean, I work. I don't want to get too much into my work life, but I work for a pretty large company, and about 3.5, 4 weeks ago, my basically entire job changed, and they said, okay, all of your time will go into focusing on this problem, and then we started seeing just like how it would impact supply chain and different types of revenue, and I said, whoa, this is not swine flu. This is not,
So that was when you woke up, was when your job.
Oh yeah, it was about a month ago, and I think that it hit large businesses about a week and a half before it hit the general public. So it kind of hit me, I think, a little bit earlier than it hit some of us and some of our friends in terms of, whoa, this is pretty serious.
You were kind of in the beta.
Yeah, I was in the beta. I was kind of version 0.8, version 0.9.
You're like, I'm testing it out.
I was telling you guys these features, you're not going to believe it, and you guys are still memeing
Yeah,
on
I felt like you were the first one to get like, this is big.
I was writing in the group chat. I said, this is not a joke.
You were, and I still was like, whatever. Like, I haven't felt that way. And personally, for me, I was basically. So on my work, I was kind of like traveling out to more like a rural part. And during that day, I was kind of out and about. And I had like a meeting somewhere, kind of like a voluntary kind of meeting thing I was involved with for work. And I was like, do I go to this? Are people still going to this? And that was when I was like starting to think, like the wheels are starting to turn. And I was like, what's happening here? So I go out. I'm out in like, hey, Ohio's flat. We're in like farmland country stuff. And so I went out for work for this, like out there for this, for my job.
Mm.
And I'm out there and our group chat is blowing up. It is, I think it was a Thursday, one of these Thursdays or whatever, and it was going nuts. And I'm like, because like school started shutting down, like people I knew like working in school systems and stuff were like, hey, we're like shut down for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds
I think
significant.
when
That
you talk
sounds
about
like
a turning point, there was definitely that night where like Tom Hanks got it, NBA
Yep.
canceled all their games,
Yeah.
school got canceled for 3 weeks. All of
Mhm.
that dropped in like a 5-hour window.
yeah.
That was when it was mainstream for
Yeah.
sure.
Because I was still out and about at like stores and stuff during the day, and I was like reading it. That was when my turning point. I was like, I started to feel nervous, and then when I was coming back, so I was in the middle of like nowhere. There was like, it wasn't as deep like population where I was at, and it's like as I was seeing chaos ensuing, I was like, these are the smartest people on planet Earth because they have like they're already social distance. Like they have a house, and then your neighbor's house is a mile out. You know what I mean? Like they're not many houses.
Yeah.
I came back to just packed grocery stores like on the way home in the city and stuff, and it was like,
Yeah.
Well, for
I
me,
was
I mean,
also hyper aware because I had a flight scheduled for that Tuesday. It was
oh
actually
yeah,
scheduled for the day when Tom Hanks got it.
oh
And
god,
like 2 weeks out, I was like, I don't know. Me and my wife were both supposed to fly somewhere. I was like, I don't know. And she's
yeah,
like, I'm a little nervous. And then a week out, I was like, I don't know. And then by 4 days out, I was like telling my boss, I was like, we're not coming. And
yeah,
and then my boss was like, well, I'm gonna go. And then by the time we got a couple days out, she completely 180'd, and
yeah,
completely changed their mind.
it just moves so fast. Moves so
yeah,
fast.
and after that, it's been. I feel like it's calmed down maybe a tiny percentage, like on news and flurry of stuff, but it's
Oh
still
yeah,
pretty changing every day,
Yeah.
right? Like it's still like talking with people from work and stuff, and it's like, what are we looking at here for expectations to reschedule certain stuff, and it's like June, July, you know what I mean? Like I can't
Yeah.
keep up, and it's like worst case scenario is what we're kind of looking at. I don't know. I want to look at better case, but I don't know.
I think on the back end, a lot of people don't get to experience this, but I worked in the trucking industry, and like you guys saw the stores that were all emptied out. Like
Yeah.
it was insane. And being on the other end of having to fulfill that huge demand, the supply wasn't there. And it was kind of tough on transportation in general because at that point you're looking at a huge surplus of price. I mean, the price just completely went out of nowhere for cost of anything, and then have to refill these stores just for them to need another 5 more orders. I think it's really a good sign to show that we're not necessarily prepared if something completely flips on its head. Like
Yeah.
nothing ever really is ever really prepared, but we were not. Like
A big
it's not
influence on American commerce and business for a long time has been this concept of just-in-time supply.
Yep.
So you don't want something to arrive early because if it's sitting, it's wasted.
Yep.
So and that's kind of goes back to lean business principles. So a lot of our supply chain and a lot of our businesses in general, they try to really have a good feel for exactly what they need, exactly when they need it. They don't want it a day early and they don't want it a day late. But as a result, if our entire economy is built on that, which it is, when you have something like this that is extremely unplanned and has a massive effect, all of a sudden you're looking at a situation where you don't have reserves. You
Well,
don't
we
have
also,
reserve medical supplies. You
yeah,
don't have reserve meat. You don't have reserve the things that toilet paper,
Yeah.
the things people are going to go out and buy up a bunch of.
Yep.
And that's something we're going to have to figure out coming out of this is what does a healthy reserve look like and who should have it? Like why is Facebook coming out saying we're donating a million medical masks? Like why do you have a million medical masks? Why do you have the reserve? Why don't our hospitals have the reserve?
yeah. Well,
Because
that's
hospitals
what.
can't afford it, but Facebook can. But why would
Mhm.
Facebook ever invest in medical masks? Did they just kind of see this coming because they're intelligent and it's just strange. It's extremely
This
weird.
concept is completely out there, but you're exactly right. About a year and a half ago, we had a customer reach out to us, and what they were thinking outside the box. They were a furniture company. They were really niche kind of thing because furniture only sells in 2 points of the year: beginning of the year and end of the year. That's it. It doesn't do much in between. So knowing that, they were like, "Hey, we have such a huge demand of furniture, and we cannot fulfill the stores as quickly as just to bring in a truckload." Because I want you guys to think about something. And I know we're a gaming podcast, but this concept
No,
is
this is
so
relevant.
out there. If you drive 600 miles on a truck, it's going to take about a day to get there. So that day of lag time cost them like their revenue. Their costing the revenue was like hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was insane how much money they're getting cost. So the CEO came in. He's like, "Hey, we want to develop pool points." And what that is let's say they have 4 stores in Atlanta. They're going to buy a warehouse and fill that warehouse full of furniture.
Yeah.
And then when they need it, they just send a box truck over there, grab the furniture they need, and bring it back.
Yeah.
And it keeps revenue flowing. And what we do is we just keep taking trucks to that pool point. That pool point never runs out. That is exactly what Travis was talking about right there. And what's sad is we did not have that for anything we needed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Furniture companies and other things that make no sense had that.
Yep.
And I just, it's weird. It's weird how some companies got it that didn't need to get it.
Yeah.
And now the companies that did need to get it are like, well, crap, we don't have it. So it's definitely a trial and error type of thing, and something I think we'll just learn from, and hopefully
a startling number of companies run on a paycheck to paycheck mindset with their inventory. They get exactly what they need. They use it. It's just
they don't anticipate an influx of demand. That's the issue. No one ever really does. They know their business pretty well. When the demand is there and they can't fulfill it, that's when everyone hits the panic button.
Yeah.
That's been the scariest thing is like, as far as like my like job stuff has been affected. It just has. But even that, like we're hanging in there. Like me and my wife are hanging in there, whatever. But what I've told people is like, that's not the scary thing of like where I am affected. These corporations are on their knees after a week.
Yeah.
That has been my biggest worry in all of this, aside from the pandemic killing all these people and like getting affected with it. But like that has been actually number one, has been like, this is actually so fragile. This is all like on the
that is the volatility of the market though. And that's why like I recently just started dipping my foot in the stocks and seeing the volatility get exposed the way it's exposed. Very scary.
And Zach, part of why that is the way it is because if you are not the big domineering force in your industry, you don't have the ability to just put aside tons and tons of money. It has to go back into investing. Zach, I mean, if you had $20,000, just it was gifted to your business, how much of that would just sit in the bank, and how much of that would go into investing in your tool set and investing in things? And maybe it's it's one example, but a lot of companies, as they grow in revenue, they immediately funnel that into let's add new talent, let's add smart people, let's add smart opportunity, let's invest. And so,
I think maybe the thinking will change on that too.
Yeah, I think it will. I think that people are going to be a little more gun shy about how much for at least the next 5 years. I think it's going to be a little shaky.
In the short term, but even then, I think it's natural that people live up to what they make and sometimes live above that. And for companies, especially, they spend what they anticipate to make. Like that's the mindset.
They build their budgets based on their revenue.
How funny is it that some people in these corporations or businesses there's this popular mindset of you need to live below your means and have a emergency fund. It's like walk the walk there.
Yeah. Because the same applies to people.
Yeah.
People want to invest in themselves also, right? And if you love music, you might want to buy a guitar because it brings happiness. If you want. Now the difference is people put money into things that don't generate revenue. Us three included, with our video games and stuff, we make $0 on our hobby, but we love it. But that's maybe the only difference. But it's businesses. The idea that the average common worker should be depositing 30% of their income into savings is ridiculous. But for some reason, it's like what's expected if you're going to buy a house or if you're going to do these other things. So
I just overall, I mean, I want to express like just gratitude for people coming together and willing to abide by what rules are put in front of them. Also, on top of that, man, if you guys have been affected by this, I know us three personally have all been affected one way or another. Man, I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to share my story. I'd love to talk about this because I think this is a different time. Being only 24 years old, I can tell you right now, I've never experienced anything like this. And being an adult in that sense.
On top of that, I have a neighbor who is very old, very, very old. And like the day when when friggin' Tom Hanks, all this stuff was going on, that or the day after, I saw him outside and he said, he looked at me, he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I was like, "Hanging in there, man. How are you doing?" He's like, "Good." And he sighed. He looked at me, he said, I've never seen anything like this in my whole life. And I told my wife, I was like, what a terrifying thing to hear from someone as old as a dinosaur. Like, this has never happened before. And you don't know how to, like,
you start going
really
through history.
unprecedented.
You start going through history books, and you're like, what does this compare to? And you hear about the economic downfalls we're having compared to also like the panic of being sick. You're like, and I know this is nothing like polio. This is nothing like polio. But you read about polio, and you're like, well, how close is it to polio? It's nothing close, but
yeah,
you start worrying.
Polio is probably the last time they were shutting down pools and shutting down.
I seen people compare it to the Spanish flu, but I think the difference then is the population was nowhere near. We were not nowhere near globalized as we are now. So we're in a whole different ballgame. Like,
economic standpoint too, because when you look at that and you're like, wow, like, are we close to the depression? Well, no, we're getting close to the recession that we experienced, but we're not Great Depression level. But again, you start comparing it to past events, and you try to find some common ground, because for people like us, we haven't experienced those things. We've only learned about those things.
Yeah, I went through the recession, and I've been talking with my wife about that. I was like, that felt pretty bad, but I didn't have an invisible thing that could kill me or hurt me. You know what I mean? Along with it. So I think worse kind of right now for me.
Wash your hands, wash your controllers, keep keyboards clean. Yeah, stay home.
And also don't do the Corona challenge. Did you see the guy that licked the toilet seat doing the coronavirus challenge? He did end up getting the coronavirus.
And the biggest thing, I think the worst thing that happened on the front end of this is it was being described in the news, and even I think in some of the health officials, they were describing it as like the flu. Yeah. This thing is not like the flu. It's like pneumonia. It attacks your lungs. It attacks your ability to breathe.
I think
pneumonia scares me in general. Yeah. If someone told me, "Hey, you have pneumonia," I'd be worried, because I know young people that have died from having pneumonia, and this is pneumonia. That's what this is. It's like a very draining pneumonia.
I had family members that had it, and it's close to death level of stuff of pneumonia or whatever. But yeah, I think one of my biggest misconceptions when I was first reading this, like, okay, seems like older elderly people are more at risk, people with immune issues, but
they're more at risk than anything.
I'm reading of people in their 20s dying from this, one, or two, it fricks you up. It's like all the accounts I was reading was like, I felt like I was going to die. And I was like, so okay, I know there's two ways. There's two return on investments on this. Could die, or the worst illness of my life, and people are not taking it. I think they're starting to take it more seriously, of course, now, I think. But there's still people that are like, it's the flu. And it's like,
I think there's two comments I have, and then I can move on from this. The first one was the whole immune system thing. I actually, about a year and a half ago, I had a gastric sleeve surgery. And actually, it's been about a year. But I had that surgery. And when you have that surgery, your whole, like, stomach and everything, your immune system becomes very exposed. And you get more compromised to being sick as easily. So for me, like, I'm, like, scared to death, because, like, knowing that and knowing what I have to deal with, that's like, I would rather avoid certain situations where I have to come in contact with some people, or at least be smarter about that. Those are the things I have to avoid. Because you're completely right when you say, like, even people in your 20s, like, I'm not trying to get sick, like, don't get me wrong. But the second concept that was born out of this, I heard this on the radio, and I thought it was the most, like, it's just stupid. It was the whole, someone's like, everyone just needs to get it, and it's become survival of the fittest at that point. And I sat there and I literally shaked my head, because I'm like, you're basically saying, this is leftovers, but us watching it happen. Like, like that just makes no sense to me. I don't know if this is a seasonality thing. I couldn't tell you 4 months from now what we look like. My projections aren't there. But what we do know is we can control what we do now. And that's where we have to be proactive. And, proactive as people, for the care of others is like, hey, stay home, do the right things, wash your hands, just be mindful of other people.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is this has afforded us a great amount of time to work on our backlogs and work on our games.
Amazing amount of time.
Amazing amount. To the point where my wife last night, before we went to bed, said, and because she was talking to people, her friends on FaceTime or whatever, and she knew I was playing with you guys and playing, like, online, and she was like, feels like we're back in high school, huh? And I was like, it feels like that, because nobody's, there's a lot more free time going around.
Yeah.
For some of us, some people are just as busy and whatever else, but there is a level of that.
It's strange.
Strange era. To go along with that, let's jump right into it. I have pre-ordered the game that only a couple months ago, pre-pandemic world, I said, I think Persona 5 looks awesome. Never going to have time to play it. Well,
I have time.
I didn't know the pandemic and the end of the global economy was here. We're here now. Welcome. And I did pre-order Persona 5 Royal. I will have impressions on that probably next podcast. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I'm planning on actually playing that as soon as I finish the game that I'm playing now. So we'll both be talking about it. Jacob, heck, you could play it too.
I really could. I probably won't, but I could.
You could if you wanted to.
I got
Hey,
enough
speaking of, it feels like high school again. That game, you literally are in high school and you have a calendar and you go to class and you take tests. And...
Yeah, I'm doing that now. I'd like to avoid that if I could in video game. It's like Mass Effect Andromeda all over again.
But Travis mentioned, and this is like got me excited. He was like, you're going to do stuff you can't do right now. Go to school, like walk around, see people close.
Yeah.
It's like, that does sound cool. Like people and close crowds. It looks weird.
Just play VR chat. It's the same thing. You get in a room full of people and they're all VR people and just talk.
I think we're all going to become VR chat.
It's going to be weird when we are able to just go back because it's like you're just not used to being around a lot of people now. I don't know about you guys. It's been like 3 weeks since I've been around more than two people.
There was a meme of like somebody acting crazy and they said, this is going to be all of us when we socially are trying to like, I don't know what to do. Like we're all going to be these weird theater class kids, I guess, when we come back.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah. One more thing, I hate to keep going back on this, but coronavirus is kind of a big topic. You've heard about it.
Why you got to make it so political, Zach? Why do you got to make this podcast so political?
I did a pickup. We did a pickup of a local business that sells. They sell pizza and some other food and stuff. This restaurant, and when we pulled up, they had us sign like the receipt. We paid through the phone or whatever else, and they were like, "I'm gonna have you sign this." I sterilized it. I wiped the pen down, and I'm handing it to you now. Or whatever. I've already done that and handed it to us. And driving away from that, I went, this is definitely gonna change, because at what point do we're getting out of this, or it's coming, people are starting to come out, the restrictions are left up. At what point do people have like an afterburn of like worry of like, maybe this kind of becomes a more normal for people? Does that make sense? Of like, what is it safe to go outside? And like, at what point do people make it safe? And
it looks great.
Do people have like, are people going to have this like OCD level of like, or just germaphobes? Like people are going to be affected by this? Because I honestly am like seeing all this stuff, and I sterilized the pen and did this. It's like, this might worry me to past the point where it's actually safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're actually going to be really safe, but
Well, there's that, and there's also like, at what point do we like just not need people to sign receipts? What are we doing? Why are we signing receipts with the pen and paper? I mean,
I honestly thought we'd get past
what
that
year is it?
by now,
I mean,
like,
I gave you my credit card information.
It already says my name. Like,
yeah, I have to type in my every time I go to like somewhere and I have to pay, and I have to press those buttons to type in my PIN. I'm like, why am I touching these buttons?
Yeah, that stuff's gone.
I've got my card. Just like charge it.
I don't think so. I just think it's just,
I've never wished that more places had Apple Pay than right now, where I could just not touch anything.
I think stuff like Apple Pay and all that stuff is going to be more
going to take off.
Your credit cards now have the ability to do wireless pay as well. Like I just got new cards, and they all have a wireless chip reader in them. And I just hold them up and pay. Like.
Yeah, I try to use Apple Pay as much as I can. The NFC, like just button it down or whatever. Oh, we've got a new guest.
Oh, look! Hey,
we got a cat.
Mila
the cat. I think she wants out. Let me let her out.
My dog's knocked out too. Yeah, she's knocked out. She's saved because she recently got fixed. Hi, Coco. Did you just wake up? Guys, this is weird. Like, to say anything, this is stupid.
It's a weird podcast, isn't it? Like we get to see like inside each person's house. I mean, you already saw this freaking place 8 times, but
I mean, yeah, my place is like not I just moved in, and like you guys probably seen the background, the blinds that are ripped up. That's for my dog, not me.
You know what's
I
interesting, and I don't know what of this kind of stuff you watch, Zach, but Jacob, I'm pretty sure you watch some of this kind of stuff. But I watch like lots of ESPN and Fox Sports, and they have these like immaculate sets, and they come every day dressed in suits, and they've got a host, and they've got like 18 cameras for video
Yeah.
angles, and they get on there and they debate about sports topics, right? Well, obviously because of this, those shows are not able to go to their studios and stuff, so they literally are doing this. Like
I
it's
know.
literally
We're
they're
on-
in their
we're on
houses
level
and they're doing this.
ground.
And it just makes me laugh because when you strip away all of like the production and the elements that they have, and I'm watching, their stuff is also like they have the hiccups that we have. They have like the, awkward handing off the topics, and they don't like it's just
The flow.
it like equalizes everything. You know what I mean? To a certain degree. Like it's just funny watching these like
Yeah.
people you see on TV all the time, and then they're like in their room and they're having a conversation just like this with
Yeah.
the chat. I
Everyone's
almost
doing
like
this
it better.
now.
There's been a couple shows where I even look down in the comments and people are like, I like this better than the thing you do normally. Like Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. You ever watch Undisputed, Jacob?
Yes, I do. I like
So
that stuff.
yeah, so Undisputed. So they're doing this basically with Shannon and Skip, and people are like, I almost like this better because they're just arguing more and they're just talking and they're not like trying to do something for the cameras. So I think that's
Everyone's a
interesting.
Twitch streamer now.
Yeah,
It's
everybody.
crazy.
It is.
Even
Well,
me, I even stream on Twitch now when we play Halo, and I don't
Yeah.
talk to
I-
whoever's not
I've-
watching or watching.
I've honestly thought about it just because like how much free time I've had now, but then I'm like, I don't want to.
I mean, I was already doing Hangouts, but I've actually been doing Hangouts more. Like it's opened me up to where I'm actually streaming more. I've been playing The Last Guardian. Let's go into Happyville for a little bit. We'll probably swing. We're gonna still talk about coronavirus warning, but I've been playing The Last Guardian on the Hangouts, making my way through that. It's my second time through, but playing it the second time through, I've been wanting to do that for a while. But that game is it's so perfect. Like there's those parts, like I'm still getting goosebumps second time through, like, oh, I'm on the stream, like check this part out right here. Oh, perfect how they like manage this and stuff. Like second time through is like, I appreciate it even more. So that's been awesome going through a second time.
I loved that game when I played it the first time.
Yeah.
It was frustrating at the beginning because the dog cat doesn't listen ever.
And I talk about that in the Hangout.
Once you get used to that, it's got a great kind of story and it's very emotional.
I talk about that in the Hangout because I didn't find out till after I'd beaten it in a developer interview that was on purpose, that it kind of sucks at listening to you because you're trying to gain this bond with this thing and you're like, go over here, and it doesn't even like know you yet.
Yeah.
But as the game progresses, they put a little part here and it can't
like,
do this
oh,
yet.
hey.
But now it's able to do it because it's like you get to see the bond, and the second time through I'm like, oh shoot, like you see it even more, like and he's able to listen more, and it tells you like, yeah, you can do this now, and he'll listen better. And
I feel like when I think back on this generation, I don't think about that game very often, but it really was. We waited for it for so long, and
Yeah.
it was really good when it came out.
Yeah, I will say too, a big complaint about it was the frame rate, like getting fricked up.
Yeah, and the input lag.
I played on the original first PlayStation 4, and then I'm playing on the Pro. I definitely noticed more smooth. It's more.
Oh yeah,
Gotcha.
of course. I mean,
It
top
struggled on
notch,
the
bro.
base PS4.
Yeah, definitely. What have you guys been playing? Anything at all? You guys been doing?
No, I've had time. I'm just kidding.
If you don't have time now for anything that you said you didn't have time before in the past, you just didn't want to do it.
Well,
Yeah, that's
I
true.
know it's true. I actually there's a couple of games. So I finally Shadow of Colossus came out for free on PlayStation. I'm probably gonna pick that up and
Oh, yeah.
probably play through that. I've never played that game before, even back when it was on the PS2.
Oh, you're in for a treat, man.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
in for
so
a great
I'm
time.
gonna go through and play that one. I haven't started yet, but I went ahead and download it. I've been playing Madden because I've had free time. So me and my friends have started a Madden franchise. I still hate the game. I hate the franchise, dude. Travis, you saw 2K bought like
Yeah,
football, right?
let's go ahead and talk about that. I forgot to
Yeah.
add that as a news
Let's
story.
talk about this real quick.
So break it down, Jacob.
So finally, for a long time, EA has had exclusive football rights to anything NFL related. Recently,
Meaning, no
Yeah.
other company can make an NFL game.
yes. So back in 2005, there were two companies making football games, ESPN and Madden, and it was really healthy competition because both companies were putting out decent football games.
And ESPN 2K5 is my favorite sports game of all time. It's in
I
my
still
top.
play it.
It's in my top 5 I think, top 5 video games of all time.
I still play all my
It is
PC.
aged better than any other sports
Mhm.
game. I mean, you could still sit down and play it and have a great time.
So because of that exclusive licensing, we haven't seen any type of football game since 2007. Like, because there was
Yeah.
the random Blitz League and stuff like that, but they'd all phased
It's
off.
just been Madden for like 15 years,
So
which sucks.
their exclusive license has went up, and the NFL didn't renew it. So 2K came in and they signed a deal to where they don't have exclusive rights, but they're now able to make video games. They cannot make a non-simulated video game for the next year, so they can't make a Madden type game.
Yeah.
But after that, it's free game. So
Yeah, and let me elaborate just a little bit. So Madden's exclusive license goes away after this year's Madden.
mhm.
ESPN or 2K can make a non-simulation football game starting right now.
Yep.
And then
Using
when
those players'
the
likenesses.
exclusive license goes up, EA could either renew with the NFL or the NFL could not renew, and then it would open it up, like you're saying, free game for everybody. Here's where I'm at with this. I hope to God, I hope that they don't renew the exclusive license after 2021 and that
Mhm.
ESPN 2K5 can come back, or at least 2K5 can come back and they can restart the thing. One, because it's not good. Imagine if only one company could make a military shooter.
No, it's awful.
Imagine if only one company could make a skateboarding game. Imagine if only one company could make, a space game, right? Like you siphon off any ability for people to compete or try to make things different or generate new ideas. And Madden has been the literal same thing, degrading, not getting any better, just getting worse, stripping out things that people love for like 15 years. It's
Mhm.
literally, you could play Madden 2016 and Madden 2020 and they're not different hardly at all. It's the same everything.
Well, look at anything. So anything that breeds, if you have competition, it breeds out the best
Yeah.
in anything.
Madden 2005 was the last really, really good Madden.
Yeah, I could understand that concept. I really did like '09 with Sean Alexander. That was the Hall of Fame edition. That's probably my favorite Madden of all time.
Sure.
When I think about it, next to 2004 with Michael Vick because he was a walking cheat code.
Yeah.
But I think when I think about like anything, I've been watching a documentary about the WWE and the Monday Night Wars between WWE and WCW, and the WWF was in such a stall point because they weren't growing, and then WCW came along and pushed them to like, their natural competition. So I'm with Travis. I hope that we don't get another exclusive rights. I honestly, I would really strongly not see that happening. I think the NFL sees what 2K has done with the NBA, sees everything else that's happening, and I don't think they care to have their rights split up. I don't think
Yeah.
that's something they care about because you look at FIFA. I don't know.
They have
play
two.
FIFA.
They've got Pro Evolution Soccer and
Yep.
they've got FIFA.
Konami has part rights, and Konami just bought rights to Juventus, which is a club out in Italy. They bought the rights to one company. So now FIFA has another team that's representing Juventus, but they're not named Juventus.
Yeah.
But Juventus is in Pro Evolution Soccer. I don't care about that. I just want a good game. Like that's why I want. And that's why I'm just done with Madden. Like I play Madden because I'm forced to play Madden.
Now all that being said, if 2K got back in the game making NFL simulation games, which a non-simulation game would be like NFL Street, well, it would be
like that.
It's 4v4 and you pick
Blitz
characters and you
stuff.
play on Blitz so I don't really know what they're gonna make. It could be a mobile game for all I know, where you basically manage a franchise cartoon like on a phone. I don't know, but if they get back into making simulation games like they used to, it's a whole other discussion of if they could recapture the magic. Like, I mean, they could take the base concept of the way the gameplay worked in 2K5 and bring it to modern day. Like, that could be done, but whether or not they would execute successfully on that, I mean, we've seen when they tried to bring Tony Hawk 5 back and try to make another pro skater, 10 years later, it didn't work so well. So you never really know, but
I think what we're seeing right now, if you look at the NBA franchise and
the NBA 2K games
but even NBA Live came back recently, and NBA Live has been hot trash. It's been bad every year, but it's gotten better and better, and it's starting to put pressure on 2K to start thinking of new ways to be better. But the concept of NBA 2K5, not 2K5, NBA 2K in general is great. You have a My Court where you go with your own creative player and play with a bunch of different people. You have your online franchise. You have your detailed franchise. Those are all things that are very, very important to sports games.
Yeah.
And then not only that, your basic gameplay is just, it's all there.
Yeah.
And so I think 2K understands what it takes to make a great sports game.
Yeah.
It's just, can they actually get a hold of that licensing to make simulated games again? Hopefully.
The only way I could sum it up is my two biggest favorite hobbies, probably outside of music, is NFL and video games. And I haven't bought a Madden game in like 9 years. And I'm not alone. There's a lot of people like me. The NFL should look at somebody like me and look at the fact that I don't buy their product and say, "Whoa, like what are we doing wrong here?" Like we have people like Travis who love video games and they love football,
EA is
and
not
they
gonna
devote
stop
a lot
making
of
the
time
game.
to those two hobbies and they don't play our game. What could be happening? Like
If
that
you
should be a big red flag.
If you have two companies making those games, you're just increasing your revenue. Like it's almost a no-brainer in
And
my
you're
opinion.
guaranteeing that people will pick a side because even if someone doesn't love one or the other, they'll like one better than the other, and then they'll have allegiance to it.
Who buy two?
Yeah.
You'll find people who end up buying both games.
I owned Madden 2005 and Madden and 2K5. So I think it would be in their best interest to open that up, but we got to wait till 2021 to find out. But that was probably when I actually read the article, it died my hype down a little bit because it was non-simulation. But when I saw that headline, the NFL had reached a deal with 2K, that was like my Shenmue 3. That was like my my god. But then it's like finding out Shenmue 3 is announced, but it's going to be, a mobile
Dreamcast.
game,
Yeah,
and
whatever.
it's, but maybe there will be a real Shenmue 3 later. It was kind of like
so fingers crossed, hopefully see something there. The only game I've really been playing is a game I've had in my backlog, VR backlog, for a long time. It's actually a long episodic game, which is called Aspire 1. It's a VR game, and what it is you're a VR operative, an agent, that you're in like a simulated box, and you get taken over a robot, and you run through stealth missions. So you get like access to like a tranquilizer gun, access to a silencer gun, access to a bunch of decoys and stuff like that, and you have to do espionage type missions. The best way for me to compare it is Metal Gear Solid meets VR, which is awesome. Like it's really, really cool. So I've played through probably about 4 hours of it. It's about 8 or 9 hours long, and that's just the first episode. They're making multiple different episodes for this game, and I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed every minute because it's more. I've been playing Metal Gear Solid 5 like off and on, and playing this and able to control they have a cool concept where how like in VR, if you guys have played VR, if I take my head, imagine there's a wall right here, and I just peek over it, I can see over that wall, right? The hardest part is when you have a corner, the only way for you to be able to see over that corner is you peek your head over. Well, in the espionage type, if you peek your head out, what are you like? You're likely to get caught. So I like what they did was they introduced a thing where like on your hand you have cameras. That's because you're a robot, and you just take your hand and you have a camera, and you can see over that, and then you can plan out what you're doing next. Because
that's really cool.
And it completely changes the game. So I'll take my hand and put it over, and I'll see there's 3 enemies there, and I'm like, oh crap, I need to think of something to do. But then like you start thinking through what you need to do and how you want to approach that situation. So it's really awesome. Another way to get into the espionage series, because I'm normally not I'm more the shoot 'em up type of guy. But for me, it's like I gotta slow down. I gotta think through each scenario and make sure I don't get caught. Because when you do get caught, it's real deal. Like there's 7 guys bum rushing you.
Yeah.
So keeping on the topic of VR, I've been wanting to ask you, did you get Life Alyx, or is that in the works, or what's happening with that?
It's in the works. I currently own an Oculus Rift S, and it's compatible on that. My biggest struggle has been I really kind of think I want to experience it on the console is made by Valve.
Yeah. That's fair.
I just don't know if I can justify me dropping $1,000 for it.
Here's what I'll say, Jay. I did a little bit of looking into that because I don't own the game and I don't own a PC VR headset, but I was wanting to understand, which one to get. And I've been seeing people say that the Rift S is absolutely just as ideal to play it on as the Index, because they said the finger tracking on the Index is really cool, but that's really it.
That's what I've heard.
And they said that actually the game has a lot of prompts where if you're reaching for something, it will move your fingers in the game the way you would move them when you do that, and just the way you will when you're doing it. So they say that actually you don't miss as much as you think you might. So I would encourage you to just go ahead and play it as is. And you can always play it again later if you get the Index. But
it's definitely on there because I want to play through I've been wanting to play through the actual original Half-Life 2, another games that are in my backlog, but I haven't
Yeah.
touched. Now that I have the time, I'm going to start making my way through it.
Do you own those?
I do. I actually have the first one on Dreamcast, but I don't think
Don't.
I don't think I'm gonna play it on Dreamcast.
Oh, no.
That's
I'm
the
not-
definitive version.
It's actually a little bit different than the actual PC version.
Yeah, I'm actually probably gonna play Black Mesa.
Yep.
And then I'll go
That's
through.
a safe way to play.
I would
it, yeah.
recommend for you especially,
Yeah,
who thought
Mesa
Uncharted
rules. It
Remastered
rules.
looked bad. You
It
should
just
not
didn't
try to
look.
play
It didn't
Half-Life
look-
1
It didn't look
vanilla.
bad. It just didn't look great.
Yeah, you should not play Half-Life Vanilla. I love Half-Life Vanilla, but you should not play it.
I'm-
This man, for those of you that don't remember, this is the man who played Uncharted Remastered on the PS4 in 4K and said, that game looks terrible.
It was not in 4K. First off, I don't care what anyone says. That's not 4K. I'm gonna play through it. It's definitely on my list of VR games to get through.
Can
I've-
you, real quick question, can you use the index, it's index, right? The one that you're wanting?
Yeah.
Can you just get the controllers and they work with your headset?
No.
See, I feel like a mom buying a Nintendo for their kid on Christmas when it comes to VR stuff.
You could have this
Like-
one instead.
I'm crossing my fingers, hoping and praying that they just release it for PS4 at some point.
So the reason I love this headset over any other headset is I'll show you guys real quick because it's just kind of cool that we're doing this. I get to show you a little
Yeah.
bit. I have the inside out tracking. So all these little cameras on the headset all the way around them.
Yeah.
I don't need base stations, which
That's
in early
fantastic.
VR, an early VR headset, that was huge. So I have 3 USB ports in my not PS4, in my computer, and then going out in the corners of my room just to have
Yeah.
my base stations to track my
Yeah.
movements. And it was cool because it worked. But Oculus was like, hey, for $400, you don't need the base stations, and it does a great job. Like I don't ever
Yeah.
have any issues with the tracking.
I will never hook up
That's
cameras
awesome.
in my house. I would do that.
And so and these controllers are amazing. Like it tracks my thumb movements, and even if I put a little bit of pressure on this one controller, this grip button, it
Yeah.
tracks it. Like it's not like it's a bad controller. So there are some things I think that for VR, if you're looking to get into, I would highly recommend Oculus over anything else. Because I had the Vive, and the Vive was cool, but the base stations are not worth it. Like it's not.
Well,
That's the only thing to keep me from getting
Before the
Valve.
world ended and the supply chain was completely drained, I was planning on getting one this
Hey,
summer. But
Oculus
TBD.
is selling through the roof because of all this. Like
they were already selling through the roof.
Yeah.
You can't get them. They've been on back order since January. I've been keeping an eye on it. You have to buy them through third party or from somebody who is selling theirs, which is
Well,
why I said the other night, if you do buy an index, let me know. We can have a conversation.
Who knew that our worries would go from how are we gonna get this back ordered Oculus to how can I pre-order Charmin's 4-pack of toilet paper? Like how do
Honestly.
I get toilet paper?
The comparison is stupid. But
Yeah.
my brother, he
Weeks
had, to
ago.
he had to get a Quest, and he went on a battle. He had to go through 4 different Best Buys till he finally found one. But he got a Quest, and the Quest is the completely wireless Oculus version, which is cool, but it runs a lot like slower. But they made a thing called a link cable where you can connect it to your computer, and it upgrades the Quest, which
Oh,
is
weird.
stupid. Like that's how far along the Oculus is. Like
Wow.
compared to all the other like headsets. So highly recommend it. Oculus is supposed to be making an announcement later this year about their new headset that they're going to be making. So hopefully it's 2.0, not 1.5 again.
But have you seen any footage? I've been watching just because this is the only way I can experience this is just streamers. I've
Yeah, I've watched a decent amount.
got in and watched a couple people play the game. Wow, that game is. Yeah, it's the thing they were waiting on, like to do another Half-Life. It was
I've been
the
playing,
mechanics and stuff that they're doing, and that is like next.
So I've been
next
playing
level.
Boneworks. I know I mentioned this a couple times on the podcast, which has like
Mhm.
really heavy emphasis on physics in VR.
Yeah.
I think Alyx is Boneworks on crack. It looks like, and
Yeah.
also like fix some of the issues I'm having with Boneworks right now. So I'm excited.
Like what
I'm-
specifically? What reminds you of Boneworks?
So one is like in VR, if I take my hand and I push hard enough through an object, it will go through it. Like you know what I mean? Like imagine a wall. Or if I put my head through a wall, it will go through it. Those kind of things are like it's heavy physics based. So like if I start pushing like on a car, the haptics will like go off in my controller, let me know like I can't push anymore, and I'll feel the pressure as I try to push. Like that is crazy. It's like the harder I push on a car, the harder the controller rumbles. Like that is nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Well, Half-Life Alyx, like when you need ammo, you'll literally go to like bookshelves and start knocking stuff off the bookshelves, and you'll find it, and then you'll put it in.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of the early game is learning. There's only 4 weapons in the game, but you learn so in depth how to reload the weapons. There's a whole upgrade way that you upgrade them to like do auto reloading, and it's
It's
so
cool.
in depth.
I think VR again, guys. I think we talked about it in our dweebs when we were going through and doing our discussions. VR is definitely at like a 1.0, 1.5 type of feel, but and I know Zach, you've been talking about. I'm waiting for 2.0. You better get ready. It's on its way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, but it looks awesome. I also love. I don't know if you've seen the videos. You can draw on a marker.
Yep.
Yeah.
On there, so I've been seeing some funny stuff from that, and then you
It's-
can flip off. You can use if you have the index, Jacob.
Yep.
Maybe that's what he's waiting on to flip off the guards and stuff. And have fun.
That's the stuff
awesome.
I'm planning on doing. I'm trying to work my way there.
Cool. So we went back. You know, we're talking about the future. We had to go back in the past around the time that Half-Life 1 came out, and they remastered it, made it look pretty. Me and Travis have been playing Halo 1's Legendary campaign.
Yeah.
Not much to say other than it's Halo, but I will say this is the first time playing the PC version.
Yeah.
And there is some wackadoo stuff. We were cracking up playing online. There are some crazy freaking versions of like there's a flamethrower, which I didn't.
And crazy like weapons from later in the series, and the maps are weird, and the modes are weird, and there's people writing slurs in the chat. It's a nuts environment playing that game online. And it's cool playing Halo on mouse and keyboard. You know, when I was a kid, I played that game always on a controller. Now that I'm older and I've learned my lessons, I play pretty much every shooter with mouse and keyboard. So I was a little worried at how the game would play on a mouse and keyboard. I didn't know if it would feel the same or if it would be as fun. And it's actually, I think, more fun on mouse
I'm
and
sure
keyboard.
it's amazing. That game is
really
built
like
for
it.
mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, I really like it a lot. And actually, I've never beaten it on legendary mode, but I feel like with the mouse and keyboard, it's a little more possible than when you're using a controller. But we're co-oping our way through that. Zach, I looked.
Yep.
If you have seen, I mean, I don't have any followers on Twitch, so I don't know how you would have seen it, but I have streamed it when Zach and I have played. My Twitch
I posted one time. I didn't post it last
yeah,
night. But
my Twitch is Slythe93. So if you ever see us go live, it's me and Zach playing Halo probably. But Zach, we just got halfway through the campaign, so we played the first mission, Pillar of Autumn, and we played the one where you're down on the Halo. I don't
Dude,
remember
that
what that
mission
one's
had
called.
to be terrible on legendary.
We did the what is it called? The Revenant, the Covenant. I don't know.
they're
when
all
you're on the big ship, and then we did the one that we did last night. The last one
was Hell on Earth.
Assault on the control room.
Assault on my mind.
Assault on the control room. That, I believe, is I actually saw online people rate that level really high. People like love it and they say it's great. I think it's one of the worst levels I've ever played.
Assault on game design.
You literally just go through the same room 12 different times? I mean, it just never ends. So but we've had a good time playing through it.
Wait till you get to the flood levels. Those are
we're on that now. The next one's a flood
on legendary level. I would honestly say like that's where I gave up because I played legendary with my friend and we got through a good chunk of it. But when you get to that, you're just like, this is impossible.
Yeah, Zach, we've got 343 Guilty Spark, the library, and then after that there's a mission. I forgot about this. There's a mission called 2 Betrayals, and I saw it and it brought back like PTSD because I played through the campaign with my brother on Heroic last year. And my sister also. And when we got to this level 2 Betrayals, it's the assault on the control room, but in reverse. You start where you got with Cortana, and you go all the way back through the level backwards. And I just kept joking because it's called 2 Betrayals. It's like the second time they screwed you with this crap.
It's like they know what they're doing.
2 frickin' betrayals.
The second betrayal. One thing I will say about this, so I'm loving it. I loved it when like I got this game. I got Halo 1 when Halo 2 was about to come out. I was like, let's see what the hype's about. I got an Xbox and I played through that before Halo 2 came out and loved it and loved multiplayer. One thing I'm learning, the pistol will kill anything immediately if you just get a headshot. And then 2, playing this with the next thing I want to talk about, Destiny 2, funny enough, I have caught, as many people are catching COVID-19, I caught the Destiny 2 bug. As everybody else is. So playing this at the same time is so funny. As Halo 1 is still good, you can taste the age. It is aged.
Yeah,
Not
it is
poorly, not
aged.
poorly, but it has. You can tell that there has been improvements on Destiny. So going back and forth between those two is jarring at times because Halo 1 seems like the beta for Destiny, and you're like, oh, I can't do that, or oh,
I can't double jump. I can't slide. I can't,
yeah.
aim down sights.
So it's very jarring to go back and forth between those. But to go into this, I have, now that it's free to play, I said I would come in. I am here. I am in the Destiny 2 world.
Yay, nay.
And I like it. I really feel like I did with Destiny 1, which is, this is bar none the best gameplay FPS like out there. The best feeling, the shooting mechanics, the guns and stuff. Oh my gosh, like nothing else touches it. Sorry. But having fun playing with you guys. We've been playing different raids and stuff. I will say we also had our friend, he's been on Hangouts before, Alex, in here, and we did what was that called? A raid? It was a raid.
Yeah,
right?
we did the first raid Leviathan.
So that
Jacob, did you know this?
No, I did not know Alex played with
Me,
you guys.
Zach Pike, Zach Campbell, April, Alex, and Ian did Leviathan together.
That'd be awful.
It was awesome. It was fun.
We got through it, and it was fun. But at times, me and Alex, I think Alex much more. He's very speaks his mind a little bit more than I do. But he said this is like solving a math problem because there are parts in the raid where it's like you have to stand over on this pedestal, on this panel, on this switch, and then that person will go over there, and then everyone has to call out a certain number, and then we have to. And I was losing my mind by the 20th try of that. Of like, can I just play a shooter thing? So I got that. That was kind of frustrating, but it was fun to be. Hey, at least you're solving math problems with your friends. And,
with your
stuff.
friends.
And more than 3 people.
And more than 3 people.
And
the boss, and the boss was a ton of fun, Jacob. When we got once everybody learned it, and we burned them.
I remember playing through the boss, and the first time I went through the raid, I got assigned duty of being the transporter. So when we fighting not Leviathan, I don't know what his name was, whatever.
Yeah, the callus.
Yeah, dude. I was in charge of getting transported into the realm and flying down the.
Calling out the symbols.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That took so much level of communication, and the worst part was like the first time we did it, we had a couple people who just kind of wasn't vibing with us, I guess that's to say. And I'm the type of person like Zach Pike got to experience it yesterday. I get highly frustrated at FPS shooters because, and I don't like to brag, but like I'm decent at FPSs. Like I've played them a long time, and like I hate gimmicks. I hate the little like when Destiny went to the whole strictly shotgun sniper like realm. I hated it because like I'm all about the auto rifle. Like how good do you shoot and how consistent can you be when you shoot? Like I love that. I don't like anyone can be a flash in the pan sniper. Like quick scoping was a thing. I know it was. But I don't know. I've been playing with them and I've enjoyed it. I've had fun, whether or not they want to believe that or not.
I'm glad they made it free. It's
yes,
no barrier to entry.
I will say it's free. We're having fun.
Yeah,
it's good.
It's free and it's fun. That's
free
how
is the price.
Really, what light level are you?
He's like 820, I think.
So you're telling me like at how many hours have you put into it?
Like I think I looked yesterday. It was like 7, I think.
Would you put a price point on this game if like you know what you know now?
Yes, this one without doing the story, and now that there's been some fun strikes and stuff we've done or whatever, I would pay.
Yeah, that's a weird question because it's quite literally free.
I know, that's why I'm asking them because it wasn't free.
Because I did pay, because I said $20 is what Destiny 1 was worth. I would say this hasn't been bad. I'm trying to think. Like, it's just been a fun kind of experience. I'd put $45 on the line for this. I'd pay that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess
it's almost a $60 game.
It's not quite there.
If they had a good story.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, because I know that is still kind of up and down.
Yeah.
If there's one thing they cannot do, because like they have everything, like the character designs, the people you introduce you to, like you get invested in those people really quickly. The story's got awful. Like it's terrible. Even like
it doesn't really have a story. It just kind of has a world. And as you learn more about the world, it's like, oh, that's cool, or that's what's going on here. But you don't have a story to grab onto. Like this is what's happening.
They don't.
So,
They do
One
not.
thing I'll ease up on Destiny, I will take back some of my harsh criticisms, is playing through Halo 1 as I'm doing this. I'll be honest, I couldn't tell you the story of Halo 1, Halo 2, or Halo 3, or Halo Reach. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a green guy in a green suit.
Yeah, it's never been their strong suit. I think that I came to that conclusion a couple of years ago because I played Destiny and Destiny 2, and then I played Halo 1 with my brother, and I was like, I feel like somehow they red-pilled us all into thinking that, like, they were good storytellers.
Yeah.
And they really never were. They had good, like, commercials, and they had memorable moments, but the stories of those games are not anything to write home about.
I will say they did make us read cards on the internet to explain the story. So I think in that way, even though it's like it's almost Kingdom Hearts level looniness of story, at least Kingdom Hearts and be like Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 was complete, and 3 like there's a cohesive story. Whereas Destiny is like I don't have time to explain what I don't have time to explain. Like,
guys, I'm currently fighting a strike right now with my dog.
Yeah, how's that going?
It's awful. It won't stop.
Well, it's communication. You got to work the panels.
Well, I can say that I have had a blast. I mean, you heard all the names we said: Alex, April, Zach Campbell, Jacob, my brother, Zach Pike, my buddy Sam's on all the time. We have like 9-10 different people that are just kind of there's always somebody on, and so it's been a fun game to play on quarantine. And
hey, I'll be right back.
And I've been having a good time with it. Teaching you guys the raid was particularly funny. It was a fun time. All right, but
do you want to wait a second?
We'll wait a second. We can wait a second.
Get off me, girl! Stop!
I don't think he knows we can still hear him.
Coco!
Oh my God!
Get off me!
Yeah, that's assault.
Oh my God. That is not a small dog.
Oh.
It's a big dog.
Oh, how did that happen?
Really disagreed with your opinions on Destiny there. Seemed like the dog did.
Dude, I could not get her to stop. I'd take her outside at one point. Like, I was not winning that battle.
So we have one more game someone's played.
Yeah, I've been playing a game. When this whole quarantine thing started, I was watching a lot of TV shows and stuff. But I was like, okay, when it really started to dawn on me, I was going to be home a lot. I was like, okay, this is an opportunity to get back into some of these games. I mean, my PS4 backlog has Persona and Nier Automata, and it's got all the Yakuza games. And on my PC, I've got a bunch of stuff. And I was trying to figure out of the big games that I started or wanted to play, what could I pick up and knock out? And so I actually settled on finishing up Red Dead Redemption 2. So
great choice.
A long time ago, it feels like, I started that game and I did the first chapter, I think. The first chapter is when you're up in the mountains. Second chapter, you're like down in a town. And I think I got to the end of the second chapter, and then I haven't played that thing for like 8 months. So I decided to get back into it, and I wasn't sure how I felt about that because I remembered liking the game, but I also remembered it's very slow. There's like 80 different characters in the gang. So I was like, how much am I going to be able to pick this back up and remember who all these people are? But I picked it back up right at the beginning of chapter 3, and like a week and a half later, I'm in the final chapter of the game. I know there's an epilogue, and so there's some more stuff after the part I'm on, but I'm in the last act of the main part of the story, I'm pretty sure, and it's a really great game. It's a weird one for me because I want to say that it has one of the best open worlds. Like, I just feel like it's so scenic, and the different regions really stick out as memorable to me. Not quite on the level of like a Breath of the Wild, but almost. Like, that top left half of the map is like those mountains, and then there's like a prairie region, and then the bottom right is like that almost like New Orleans, Louisiana style with the swamps.
Yep, I know.
And then up in the north right is like these caves, almost like West Virginia, and you got these weird, like hillbillies in these caves. And so just the different regions on the map are very memorable. And this game is, I think the most beautiful game I've ever played in terms of the environments. I always thought The Witcher 3 was the most beautiful because the trees and like the islands look so good, and that game still looks great. But Red Dead is a cut above even that. Like the world, I don't know. You just turn the corner, it looks like a painting with like the fog and the lighting. I'm playing it on my PS4 Pro with like HDR, and it's gorgeous. And then when you get into the characters, so you've got like you play Arthur, who's in this gang, and he's kind of like the strong, silent type kind of character. He's not like the brains of the outfit. He's not dumb, but he's not like trying to solve all the problems. He kind of just is loyal, and he's loyal to the gang, and he's just going to do what Dutch, who's the leader, asks him to do. And he's going to, if they ask him to go collect debts, he's going to go collect debts. If they ask him to go rob a bank, he's going to go rob the bank. He's not going to say, let's not do this. This is too dangerous. He just kind of does
Loyal
it.
by nature.
He's loyal by nature, and that's I really like his character in that way.
Yeah, me
he's
too.
he's kind of I think he's the closest. There was always a thing early in video game storytelling, which was like settling on, do we do a blank slate character where you can kind of imagine your own personality onto them, or do we do a really well defined character where you just pick choices, right? So like Witcher 3 is an example of a really well defined character. Like Geralt is a character, right? You can do like bad things or good things, but it's all kind of morally ambiguous anyway, one. And two, ultimately, Geralt is Geralt no matter what you're picking, and that's great, that's fine. But then the other side is like Gordon Freeman, which is like you don't really know anything about him. He's a blank slate. You can just feel however you want to feel, right? I think Arthur, if for an open world game, is probably the most, like kind of in between those two things you can get, where he is a character, but like because of his personality and because of the ambiguous things you can do or not do in the game, like you can kind of imagine what you think is going through his head, in a way I don't feel like you could do with Geralt or with some of these other kind of like really well defined characters. And then there's the other side, which is totally blank slate, and there's no interesting story beats. They're just Gordon Freeman's just a guy with a crowbar. Like there's no like no one ever thinks about Gordon Freeman as a character. He's a picture. He's just an art design. And so I really like Arthur as a character. I'm down towards the part of the story where there's some pretty pivotal things happening with him, and I'm connected to him. I really like him. He's kind of living a rough life and all the things that come with that. So I really like it from that vantage point. And then the gang itself has Dutch, and it's got Micah and Bill and Hosea. It's got all these guys, and I was worried I wouldn't remember who any of these people were. And there's been a couple times where someone's either died or something's happened, and I've been like, okay, he's dead. I don't know who that guy is. But for the most part, I really like the characters in the gang, and they all are unique and memorable. There's so many great. This game probably wins the award for most scripted dialogue that's interesting that you could totally miss.
Yeah.
Like when you're hanging out at the camp, every single
miss a lot of
character
that.
walks around the camp and they talk to each other, but they don't say generic things like, oh, the weather today. Like normally they're saying things that are true to their character. Like, I am so upset about this. And then
They're
this other
arguing
person
with each
says,
other.
they're
Stuff like that.
arguing true to who they actually are. And it's happening. And you can walk by and hear it and walk away. You can walk by and talk to them. You can walk by and sit and just listen. Sometimes if you say something, it will change the flow of what they're saying. Like they'll start to ask you questions, whereas if you didn't say anything, they probably wouldn't ask you the question. And it's kind of mind-blowing in a way of, I don't like to miss dialogue. So like in a game like Mass Effect, I would be the guy that would sit there and click on every dialogue option to see what they have to say. And now that I'm getting older, I don't do that as much because a lot of games aren't written well enough to really care. And two, it feels very 7th gen or 8th gen to do that, or 6th gen to do that. This is like the modern day version of that, where like you don't have a dialogue wheel where you're talking to your people in your gang. You're just sitting down and they're talking. And then you can say something or not say something or ask them, engage to learn more. But ultimately, like, it's much more natural in a way that, like, I prefer that way over like a dialogue system where you're going up to everybody every time you come back to the camp and you're asking them things on the wheel. But the flip side is you can miss stuff all the time. All the time you can miss stuff.
Yeah.
There's stuff going on constantly. I was walking back to camp and I was going to my bed, but I heard Dutch, who's the gang leader, was giving a speech. And so I was like, I'm going to go see what he has to say. And I go over there, and he gives this really interesting speech. And then people start saying, he doesn't know what he's talking about. After he gives the speech, they're walking away, and they're all saying, like, he's losing his mind and stuff. And I was like, if I had just gone up and slept in my bed and then went to the place I was going to go next, I would still be in tune with what's going on, like in the story, but I would miss those little interactions. And so on that level, that game deserves like a technical design, all the awards in terms of building an organic gang and an organic kind of culture of these people that are all together doing this thing.
I think that was one of the biggest components. What made that was my game of 2018, game of the year.
Remind me what else came out in 2018. Was it Spider-Man God of War?
Spider-Man God of War,
I think I gave Spider-Man my game of the year that year because I didn't get around to Red Dead. Red Dead is the game of that year, far and away. Like, I would retroactively go back and strip it.
God of War, though, was...
It checked everything on my list because of that. Like, you felt like you knew these guys, and like you said, and you can miss conversations, and people would just sit down and start strumming an instrument, and they would start singing a song at a campfire, and it's like, I know these people. Whoa, I've never felt that in a video game ever. I've never felt this level. This is new to me, and that's why I was like, oh, this is like, it checks every list of like the lore in this world and the characters. It's so deep, it's so awesome, and I felt like I was living there.
It's an actual role-playing game, not like an RPG system with the numbers and all that. It's like you're literally playing the role of Arthur in this story, and you're literally every little integral thing that he would have to do to survive, from hunting a rabbit and cutting it and eating it to, going and collecting debt for the gang. Or when you come back, they're saying, we don't have enough food for this person. You're like, do I put money in the box or not? And then if you don't, people will ask, why aren't you putting money in the box? And it's just like, it's really, really good.
How do you feel about the overall story pacing?
Here's what I'll say. I don't think that there's anything actually wrong with the literal missions. I think that the second chapter of the game should have been split into two different chapters. And this is like a thing that I feel like happens nowadays, where a game will have, let's say, 6 chapters. And this same thing in Death Stranding. Death Stranding had acts, I think they were called. Act 2 was like twice as long as any other act in Death Stranding, or Act 3. I don't remember which one it was.
Chapters. I think it was called
chapters. Yeah. So Death Stranding was similar. If you're gonna have chapters, they should try to break them up to make them feel roughly equal length. Because I spent probably close to half of my playtime with Red Dead on one single chapter, and it was early in the game. And when I saw online that there were 6 chapters, and it took me like 15 and a half hours to do one of the chapters, I kind of fell off it. I was like, I will never finish this game. It goes on forever. But the later chapters are so much more succinct, to the point. It's less sprawling. And so I think from a pacing perspective, I think maybe early on when you're at Valentine, which is the town that Chapter 2 is based around, I think they could have condensed some of what you're doing in Valentine and spread it amongst the other parts. But I also think they could have just made it 2 chapters. Like, there's a chapter where you're on the mountain, which is the beginning of the game, Chapter 1. And then they tried to do Valentine, which was 1, introducing you to the whole open world, and then 2, also trying to get you to do this whole interweaving story in Valentine. I think what they could have done is make Chapter 2 at the start get introduced to the open world, or reverse it, but don't try and do both at the same time, because it made that chapter it was like 20 missions long. And so that was kind of my feeling on it. But
I forgot
that
they packed so much content at the
beginning.
My
God, that Chapter 2, it's good, but it's just so long.
So demotivating for me. Like, I just didn't want to I didn't want to continue. I'm glad I did, but it was like, I feel
Did you finish it?
I'm almost at the end. I feel like I'm getting closer and closer. That's a game I'm probably going to finish on this. You guys are going to hear about next month.
You got time.
So, but I'm with you, Travis. I think the game is great. It honestly makes me more excited that Rockstar is working on their next GTA game, because Red Dead was so awesome. This thing solidified for me, because I love GTA 4. I beat GTA 3 and 4. I never beat 5, but I played it a decent amount and I liked it. And then I never did Red Dead 1. But I like this one a lot. I wish they would put Red Dead 1 on PC or something, because it might be fun to dabble with. But is it not on
I think
Game Pass?
at this point I missed it. Yeah, it might be on Game Pass. But this game, I almost forget because you take Rockstar for granted a little bit because they're just such a behemoth and they're not at E3, and you just, I don't know about you guys, I don't think about Rockstar the same way I think about all these other game companies. Like, to me, they're almost their own thing. They're aloof, they do their own thing, they release their games when they release them every 5 years. And so, but this game reminded me, because it's the first time I played one of their games in a long time, one of their new games, it just reminded me that they are far and away, like nobody is even close to making random quest givers and random NPCs interesting.
Yeah.
Every single one. And I was even thinking about this with The Witcher 3, which I love The Witcher 3, but a decent amount of your quests in that game are some guy like, oh, hey, well, we got a gargoyle out here. And then Geralt's like, it's probably not a gargoyle. And it ends up being a good quest, but like the guy on the street that stops you is just like a commoner. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But in Red Dead, it's always like they're wearing an interesting outfit, or they've got a weird voice, or they've got a weird tick, or they've got something weird with a family or a friend that they're trying to find. And it's just like every single character in that game feels like a real person almost, and it blows me away how they do that.
Rockstar's very their niches, they take time. Like, they take a long period of time to create something that's really, really good, and it's really good over off the rip. Like, we're not going through the whole like give it 6 months and it's good. Then no, you get the game, it's good where it is at, and you can play it right there, and then they add to it. They're still adding stuff to GTA 5 today, and it's keeping it the way it is. GTA 5 is one of the like longest, most continuous played games on Steam for a reason.
Yeah, that game sold so many copies.
Yeah, it's unreal, but that's because Rockstar knows what they're doing.
If I could change anything about Red Dead, I would just make some of the walking a little less slow.
Yeah.
And like when you're walking through a building and you're trying to find like a can of beans or something, and he's just like, like it's just, he's literally every little movement. It's cool because it puts you really in the, it's tough. It's tough to say you change it. I'm just used to that real snappy, like Metal Gear Solid 5, like you see the same types of things in that game where like Solid Snake, if you pick something up, he grabs it, he puts it in his pouch, but it's just so much more fluid. And that's just Kojima makes everything so snappy and fluid. So when you go back and you play something like this, it really slows you down. But it was a slower time period. So
I'm with you, man. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's get into the game industry and the coronavirus, because everything was kind of affected this month. Multiple kind of news things we want to talk about were kind of involved in that. I think the first thing is Jacob still here?
I'm still here. I'm working on getting my dog inside, but I'm listening. I'll chime in when I can.
Okay, so you're still listening. Okay. So first thing, something that before all this Corona stuff happened, we were wondering, what's happening to E3? People are dropping. Sony dropped out.
Jeff Keighley. That's when I started getting more concerned, was when Jeff Keighley dropped out, because he's like Mr. Games. Like he doesn't drop out of anything.
That was spooky, but we didn't even get a chance to see if there was more to it because this coronavirus came and they canceled it. It was more for like health reasons than whatever. But I think this doesn't help the chances of it coming back. I don't know, like, because before it got canceled because of the coronavirus, people like Keeley was whatever, and it's like, this doesn't bode well. I don't know what's happening if people are dropping out,
I got to be honest. I think that this, if anything, honestly might help E3.
Really?
And here's why. Yeah, here's why. So I've seen a lot of people say this is the death nail, all that stuff. So last year, there's kind of, if you want to talk about what's happening at E3, it's kind of death by 1,000 paper cuts. So we've talked about how it's regrown back into kind of this mass consumer thing. We've talked about how it's kind of going through those ebbs and flows of being more focused on just the exhibitors and just the industry people, and then it blows up, and then they cut it back and it blows up again. So there's that. There's the reality that digital distribution, is of news, like Nintendo Direct, and now Sony's doing their thing. It kind of makes you wonder, why do we need to do this? Why do we need to have a presence? And then last year, one of the biggest things is they had the ESA, I think it is, they had that leak where everybody who had attended and gotten credentials for E3, they leaked accidentally. Somebody stole all of those people's home addresses and phone numbers. Did you guys remember that last year?
No, I didn't
Yeah,
know.
so everybody from Jeff Keighley to the guys at Giant Bomb to the director of God of War, all of their home addresses were leaked and they were available on 4chan. So, and they were proliferated throughout the internet. So that is when I think, I think companies were like, I don't know, should we be here? Should we not be here? But I think that accelerated the conversation at the more granular, like press level and at the common developer level of, okay, there's a lot of crazy people out there, especially in the games industry, and we're going to this event, we don't know how we feel about it, and then like they're not secure and they leak our addresses, like our home addresses. Like I think that was what really started last year, people saying, why do we even work with this company? Why do we even do this? And I think that people coming out of last year were telling the ESA, the software, the people that put on the E3, they were telling them, hey, like we need to like have some change. We need to like we need commitment from you that like you're taking the right precautions. This event's kind of not, we're not sure how we feel about this. And I guess ultimately I was reading Jeff Keighley posted that thing on Twitter, but then people were writing back and he was responding to them. And so the narrative I was able to kind of stitch together was kind of this thought of there was hopes that the people that do E3 would be making more adjustments this year and trying to like be more secure, and they weren't getting the vibe that they were almost acting like nothing happened. And that is part of why people were starting to pull out even more. And people were starting to say that this year's E3, even if it had gone on as planned, was going to be really kind of a mess. So I'll take this all the way back, which I think this is, if anything was going to help E3, I mean, it hurts in the immediate, but I think long term, this gives them a year off to like actually sit down and try to figure out like what, how do they repair their relationship with people, and what does the event need to be in 2021? Because when you're in a mode where you have to do the event every year, it's hard to really sit back and take feedback about the previous year because you're already working on the next year.
Yep.
And so this gives them a chance to sit back and actually figure out what's needed.
That is absolutely something that can happen. I think you're right.
If they have the right leadership.
I will say another path they could take on this that may happen, and I've seen some people say this too, that the world is changing and everybody's like doing this. Like you even said, like some of the sports people are like, why don't you do this all the time?
Yeah.
So I wonder if more people are going to look at what Nintendo was already years ahead of doing. They're kind of direct. Then maybe people will go, wait a second. It wakes everybody up of like, this is how much we were spending. This is how much we saved by not doing this. And we got the same amount of exposure to our product this year. I don't know.
I'm going to tell you another reason. I get it. I'm going to tell you another reason why I think people aren't thinking about this all the way through. I'm seeing a lot of people say that companies are going to skip E3 this year. And then as a result of skipping E3 this year, they're going to see that their games, if they do the digital direct or whatever, they're going to see that their games aren't performing worse, and they're going to not go back to E3. The problem with that is we are now in an economic recession. Their games are not going to perform as good as they would have. All the games this year are going to perform down. So when you get to the end of the year and you've just performed down, and you're sitting back and you're saying, oh crap, we need to really deliver next year, are you really going to sit here and try to roll the dice on, well, we think we didn't perform down because of E3 or not because of E3? You're going to go back to what you know works, and they're going to go back next year and say, forget all of what we talked about doing. Let's do the most straightforward plan we can to make sure that we can figure out what the problem is. Because at the end of this year, if games are performing down, there's going to be no way of knowing how much of it was the economy, how much of it was we didn't present at E3, how much was X, how much was Y, how much was Z. And next year, when they need to deliver for their shareholders, they're going to do the most vanilla thing they can possible.
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think what you're looking at in the sense of, I think what you started saying was talking about like digital delivery. That right there, I'm like 100% for. I think anyone who would look at this current market and this current situation we're in would understand that, hey, of course we're going to perform down. Why would you change your entire direction of how you're delivering your product because of something you cannot control?
Well, that's what I'm saying. By just shifting fully to from now on, we're only going to announce it digitally, that would be changing it. That would be the change.
Most of these companies are already doing that now.
No, most of them are not. Most still go to E3.
Doing it.
That's not most. That's two. That's two major publishers. The rest still have a physical. Microsoft is like big into E3.
You're right, but they have all the product to do.
Jacob, there's two that have shifted to purely digital. There's like 7 other major publishers that
But that's what I'm saying though, is they're already setting the paveway in front of it to make this happen. when
Yeah.
when E3 started back in '95, like what it was doing was it was doing the number one thing that they needed, the gaming industry needed, was word of mouth. You had
Sure.
magazine and you had commercials. Word
Yeah.
of mouth is everything.
Yeah.
We have evolved way past that, like way past that.
I mean, we have, but also there are people. I have friends who don't pay attention to gaming news all year. Like I would say until this year, my brother's getting a little bit more into it. My brother would never text me and say, "Hey, did you hear this got announced or that?" But the week of E3, he always knew what was going on. I got another buddy named Greg. He every year he doesn't follow this stuff all
You
year,
wanna know
but
why?
because it pummels the media all at once,
Well,
and
yeah,
everybody's word gets out at one time.
but even then, I
You're
still
not going to
get,
have that this year.
when Sony and Nintendo did their separate things, I still got notifications on my phone. I still got notifications from my brother texting me or other people. Like that's the thing though, is like I feel like the delivery is still the same. Is it in a major area and all condensed in one thing? No, it honestly puts more pressure on the developer to have to shine. I don't know. I honestly think like E3 is going down the toilet, but that's just me. I don't.
I mean, I think we all agree that it's trending in the wrong direction for them. But my point is, my only point is when you get to the end of this year, if you're head of Ubisoft, okay, and let's say the Assassin's Creed they release at the end of this year underperforms, right?
Mhm,
We know that the coronavirus had an impact, right? People don't have as much money, right?
mhm.
But we don't also know if potentially part of it was we weren't at E3 and we didn't do our big showcase and we didn't get that big boost of word of mouth in June, right?
Yeah.
So when you talk about 2021 and you've got the next Watch Dogs coming out, is that really going to be the time to take another gamble for a second year on a digital announcement? Or would you rather just go to E3 like you've always done and shoot your shot because you know what that gives you from a word of mouth
Yeah.
perspective?
Well, I think those developers are definitely will. I don't know.
That's
if
what I'm
every-
saying. That's
I
what
don't
I'm
think.
saying.
I think this is where you're going to see E3. Oh, you're right. Most people, but the people who I hate to say the word matter, would look at
I
other
mean, Ubisoft's a
games.
big company. They make a lot
All
of money.
gamers' lives matter. That's all I'm gonna say.
I don't consider. I guess I don't consider Ubisoft one of the top tier companies.
I mean,
I get what
but
you're saying.
from a fiscal perspective, they are. They are one of
Yeah,
the
no, you're
E3,
right.
Ubisoft.
But
My
your
my
Ubisoft
only
and
point is there's
Bethesda-
these people on Twitter that live in Twitter world and they think magically next year E3 won't exist. And I'm saying there's still plenty of companies, third-party publishers especially, that need it
Yeah,
to a certain extent
E3
as
will
a
be
security
here.
blanket.
E3 will be here next year, and they will be here for probably a couple more years. Will they have the impact they've had in years past? I'm saying no. And I
Yeah.
think that we're going to start seeing companies take their own onus on presenting their product in a
Yeah.
different manner.
It'll be interesting who is still around after the dust settles. Speaking of who's going to be around, an essential service, much of our doctors and our nurses and our GameStops. GameStop mentioned was in the news because as places started getting locked down, we're in Ohio, and they started like a lockdown. Our governor said, hey, shut it down. Anything that's not essential, shut it down. As that was coming down the pipeline, different states have different rules right now. I don't know what all 50 states are doing right now, but GameStop came out and put a letter to the store manager, said, keep it open at all costs, and we are an essential service. Tell them we're an essential service if they try to close you down. I love that. I think that is GameStop's crescendo as they are going.
Did you see why they said that they're essential service?
No, I didn't see.
I saw it. Yeah, they said
I'm here at the essential service GameStop.
they said that
still
they're
open.
they said that they're essential service. Get this, because in the letter it said, because we sell equipment that is vital for businesses to do remote to work.
Wow, they found a little freaking.
What do they sell at
Yeah.
GameStop that helps you do remote work? A
USB
headset?
cords. USB
This
cords.
headset. Because believe it or not, I couldn't. My dog, piece of dirt. I love her to death, but she chewed up my mic to my actual like HyperX's, so I couldn't find a replacement.
Don't tell me you went to GameStop during all
I
this.
had to go to GameStop because at the time everything else was closed. And no lie, I went to Target, I went to Walmart, and they didn't have like headsets.
Thank you, GameStop.
So
I
You know
take
what?
back everything I said.
We'll take it all back. Jacob
But-
needed them. This podcast brought to you by
Hold on.
GameStop.
hold on. This is where I got ticked off.
Is this Jacob's GameStop woes?
Yeah, I ran to the nearest GameStop. I'm like, do you have those games? Like, no, we're actually sold out. They gave me like $13 for it. Oh yeah, freak GameStop, dude.
This is the dumb part. So I walked in, the GameStop over in Fairfield had a stinking sign on the door saying, "We're open, but no one's allowed in the store. Please order in a sign curbside delivery."
Yeah, they're doing curbside. Yeah,
And I was
saw
like,
that now.
Okay, that's fine. So I called him. I literally called. I was like, "Hey man, I'm standing outside. Can you grab a mic and I'll give you my card and then just give it to me?" And he's like, "Well, you have to do it online." Okay, so you're gonna make me download your app just so I can buy a stupid mic and then pay for it the same way I'd pay for it now? Yeah, man. Okay, give me 5 minutes. I do it, and it made me pick a time. And I was like, this is stupid. I have to pick like 30 minutes out.
Yeah,
So I
you're
picked-
right there. I could see in the window.
I picked it, and then I called him. I was like, "Hey, man, I just did the curbside thing." He's like, "Well, it takes a few minutes for it to get over. What time did you select?" I was like, I selected like 1:30. Okay, well, come back at 1:30 and pick it up.
No, just come out the door. Just
I
come
literally,
here.
that's why I was like, I
No.
just paid for it.
Just walk out the door.
Give it to me now. And he's like, I have to wait for the order to come through, man. Call back in like 5 minutes. Dude, they're dumb. The company
they're crazy.
sucks, dude. It's so sad. This little $5 headset, because I had to have a headset. Like, it's stupid.
Maybe that's why they brought Reggie on board. They said, how can we make things even more difficult for our customers? You've seen a lot of that at Nintendo. So
I also was seeing that the way they were taking payment at first, I guess, I don't know if they're doing it now. You said they have the app, so maybe they quickly adjusted on this. I was seeing online that what they were telling store managers was to get a plastic bag, to get the credit card, swipe the card using the plastic bag, put it inside out, and hand it back to the customer in all this.
That company,
They are not going to be around after this. I'm just going to say, like, I don't know. If they're around,
I don't know how they're still open.
Their stocks, because again, I'm looking at stocks now. I shared this yesterday. They were sharing at like $30 a stock back in 2015, which is like relatively decent for a company their size. They're sharing for like $4 a stock right now.
They were already in the toilet.
The 5-year trend has been
I
down.
actually can't comprehend how they're not bankrupt at this exact moment.
Pure willpower.
Knowing what I know about how this has affected lots of businesses, and
I mean, they are trending downwards definitely because, I mean, look at the news that we last talked about, how they were closing like 300 stores recently, I think, around the nation. So like, and I think they're closing even more right now as all this is going on. So, I don't know how they're still around.
Here's their 5-year trend.
Looking good. Hey, Reggie saw that and said, "I got to get on their board." Like,
do you think that they're thinking if we can just get to fall, the new consoles will save us?
They were ready to walk on dead bodies of their employees to expose them to this virus.
I think
there.
I think they are just trying to get to this fall because they can turn a profit
through
because they can basically reel in a bunch of people for the new consoles. Yes. That has to be their plan.
It's absolutely. They're holding on and using the dead bodies of their employees to get
after
there.
That,
on them to get there.
They're going to get the PS4s and the Xbox Ones and try to resell them again because, that's what they do with every past gen. They're still trying to sell PS2s and Wiis. It's over. Like, they need to call it. They need to call it now.
I don't think they will. But I will say that goes with kind of the next thing are these consoles that are confirmed for holiday 2020.
Yeah.
Because
are those even going to make it?
Already, earlier before the holiday is in the fall, the new iPhones come out. So I'm a big iPhone guy. I get the iPhone every year on my plan. I've been keeping up with that, and it's like back and forth that thing might be delayed a couple months already, or like this might be the first year maybe they just go into 2021. I don't know.
Because there's supply chain issues, there's launch issues, like
everything's too far out.
Who's going to go to a console launch?
We're pushing this back, boys. It's going to happen.
I really don't know what this holiday season looks like after this clears, or if it's still cleared, so I don't know.
Yeah. It's
It's just
weird.
overall again just a crappy situation. But
Microsoft came out, or was it Microsoft?
Both of them came out
Both
with
of them came out
more
and said
stuff.
that as of now, we're on track.
Yeah.
well, of
But what
course
else are they going to say right now?
they can't. I mean, who in the world would cancel something for December? Like
Yeah.
you're insane to do that. But we're already canceling things for June and July. We're only 4 months away. Like
yeah.
and you're telling me you're going to speed up. If they do not push this back, we're going to have huge demand issues. I mean, we're talking on the scale of like not the PS2, but like the Dreamcast when it first came out. There was such a high demand for it, and they couldn't meet
Do
the
you think
need.
that they would launch with too few units just to
That would
get
be
it going?
that would.
I
be
mean,
the
look
dumbest-
at the Wii. They came out with like 5, I think, for the rest of America.
It was
units.
absolutely terrible. The Wii launch was so botched from a demand standpoint.
So
But
we're
I-
going to need to pre-order our PS5s early.
Yeah.
But I don't even know, like
I did sign up the other day. Best Buy came out with a thing. These things have never worked my entire life, but they had on Best Buy, they had a page. I saw it on Twitter. Someone linked to it. I put in my email to when pre-orders become available on Best Buy or whatever.
They're always late, probably.
They never have worked. I've never got an email that said, "Hey, it's up," from any of those sites I've ever done that for. It's
because
never worked.
it happens.
It's never worked at all.
Dude, I swear to you, Zach, and this is, I mean, I'm a living like testament because of the whole Ellie edition for Last of Us.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get that now for a millennium, but they did one last wave, and literally in the blink of an eye, they were gone. Like,
Yeah. Did you
it's-
end up getting the one on the second try?
no, that was the second try. It was literally like I
Oh.
loaded up the PlayStation page, I clicked on the link, it said out of stock. And I was like, are you serious? It's been 1 minute. Like,
Yeah.
you cannot win those battles. And so the dumbest thing that either any of these companies could have done is to push out their console this year and not have the demand be able to be met.
Yeah.
It would be an
So
absolute.
will we be playing the
insane
PS5? I don't know.
We don't
I'm
know.
going to say yes. I'm going to say this whole thing is going to blow over. Next podcast, it's gotten even worse. Like there's like fire in the background. And
In
I'm
all
like,
honesty, I think that things will remain shut down for April and most of May.
yeah.
I think by June we'll have hit the peak, and then I think that we'll start to see certain things start to open back up in June. And then I'm hoping by midsummer we can enter a state where you can go outside, social distancing is still encouraged, you can still see people, but swimming pools probably won't be open. And there'll be a lot of argument and debate about when can we do this?
Yeah.
When can we do that? When can I have a concert again? And somebody will have a concert, and some people will say it's too early to have a
Yeah.
concert, and it's going to be like that also. This will be the summer of second guessing. That's what this is going to be.
Yes.
This will
And-
be the summer of it's technically legal, but it's just responsible, and we'll argue all summer, and it's going to be that way.
I guess the way I was looking at it in a sense was there's a lot of people who are saying they don't know if this is going to be a seasonal disease because of the way like it's introduced, like the flu and stuff like that. If the summer comes around, maybe like something changes where it's less infectious and maybe people are less getting sick. We don't know that kind of stuff yet, though. We've only been introduced this for a couple of months. So we could come into spring and summertime and people stop getting sick, and then come next winter, it's a whole new ball game.
Yeah.
Like this is the crappiness of the uncertainty we have.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying like I get why some companies are pushing their winter stuff out right now because they don't know what's going on. But I'm with you. Like I think it is definitely a summer of uncertainty, but in the sense of like I literally have no clue what 2 weeks from now holds.
Yeah. Or a week. Like things
Yeah.
change every day. So, yeah, we don't know. It's crazy.
It's just stupid.
So you know what? Enough with games, enough with coronavirus. We'll never talk of them again. Both subjects. We'll move on to TV. We're TV fans now, baby. And there was TV at the Wazoo. We've got JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which you've talked about
JoJo's
before.
Bizarre. I
Yeah.
don't think I ever talked about it on the podcast.
I've talked about it a little bit about it. It's on my list of need to watch. My little brother has
You watch
watched it
that
4 or
show,
5.
Jacob?
I have not. It's on my list of I want to watch. Like
Jacob, I think you would love this show. I
That's-
think you would
I-
absolutely love this show.
Yeah.
I think so too.
I think you would because so I've started. I'm in the second arc, which is still in the first season, whatever. But I'm in the second arc of the show, second season, blah blah blah. It turns into Dragon Ball Z. And what I mean by that is there's parts in the show. I'll back up a little bit and kind of explain the preface, and then I'll get to Dragon Ball Z. There is a character JoJo in the first arc of the first season, whatever.
Joseph
And
Joestar.
Joseph Joestar, and they're all British. And there is a guy named Dio that enters in. I won't spoil the whole thing of how he comes to be and all this, but he comes in, and it turns into Daffy Duck versus Bugs Bunny in anime form. This is what the first arc is. It is literally cartoonish, like
They hate each other.
they hate each other. And
Oh my gosh.
JoJo is this goody, like, I must do this. I'm a hero. I'm a good guy, kind of upright citizen. And Dio is this like Mr. Grinch guy, like, I'm
He
gonna
is
get
so
him.
evil and hateful.
And it turns into cartoonish. It is Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck.
And you got
between
people
them.
named after bands and singers, and
I want to see it. It looks really good. Like
It's
the
a-
art
it's a
style looks
very-
great.
so take a step back real fast. So JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a manga. It's a shonen manga. So it's a hero-based manga, just like Dragon Ball Z, just like
Naruto.
Bleach, just like Naruto, whatever. But here in America, our exposure to it has been far less than things like Dragon Ball Z. But the top two manga from the 80s on in Japan have been Dragon Ball Z and JoJo's. JoJo's has continued to run to this day. The 8th part is still being developed as a manga. It's been developed since 2012, I think, 2011. And so it just continues on. It has been going forever. And each part follows a different descendant of the Joestar family. So whereas Dragon Ball Z, it just kind of follows Goku the whole way. This, every part will shift the main protagonist, and then certain characters may come along for the next journey, right? And so it is extremely stylish. It is extremely out there, bonanza. Like in Dragon Ball Z, the power system's all based around like what's like the energy? What's the thing called?
It's power level.
Your
Power
power
level?
your key.
Your key, okay?
Yeah.
So that's the power system in Dragon Ball Z. JoJo's is known for changing its power system. So that keeps it fresh from part to part. The first 2 parts follow this power system called Harmon, and it's like basically like electric energy. I don't know, it's whatever. But starting with part 3, they introduce an entire new power system, which basically makes Harmon useless. And that is when the show really takes off. And it is like, this is mind, this is just, everything is so weird. Like people are like taking people's souls out of their bodies and stuff. It is like
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, there is like crazy rules. Even in the first 2 seasons,
Yeah.
there's things that happen. You're like, he can do this and pull his Harmon, which makes this car fly across the. It's not what happened, but like,
yeah,
what? How do you get that power? So the show will stop in like a freeze frame,
yeah.
and then it'll go Dragon Ball Z of like, look what he's doing. He's using his power level to do this. He's never done this before, and it'll do that, and you'll be sitting there and you're like, this is Dragon Ball Z, because it like. They sit and talk so long before they do an attack.
Yeah.
You're doing that? I know what you're about to say right now. Next. And they will just go on for 5 minutes. And I'm like, I'm losing my mind. At certain
But
parts.
what JoJo's has in its back pocket, and it's in the title of the show, is it is so bananas. It will shock you and surprise you of like, what is happening? Like, it just funny things, shocking
out of the blue.
things. It's very out of the blue. You can't predict what's going to happen episode to episode. It just takes weird turns, and yeah, I like it a lot. It's a great Saturday morning anime. You can throw on, watch a couple episodes, have some fun, or if you're laying down one day and you're not tired enough to go to bed, but you don't want to watch something serious, you can watch a few episodes. And I'm in part 4, and it is fantastic. I love it. I would say that part 3 it's called Stardust Crusaders. It's a great anime. I had an absolute blast with it. Jacob, I know you would love it. Zach, I'm glad you're watching it. It's a fun one. It's goofy, but it's probably the only shonen anime I would really ever be able to get into, because those things tend to run really long and have a lot of filler. And this show it's got the right amount of style and goofiness and memorable characters that I enjoy.
It's on my list. I want to make it that, and I want to watch Kill la Kill. Those are the 2 I want to see right now.
Cool. I think we need another elephant in the room, aside for the coronavirus, how wrong we were. It's how right I was with The Leftovers. I think that's the other Elephant
you guys
in the
already
room.
talk about this last week when I
Yeah,
was
but you
here?
weren't here, so it doesn't count.
Why are we talking about it twice?
Because he didn't finish the show.
I
He said
didn't.
because what happened last time was he said I liked it, but I'm not sure if I'm going to finish it. We're going to see. He did finish it. I'm going to
I
give
did.
him the floor. Jacob.
So I did. I finished The Leftovers, all 3 seasons. I will break it down from season by season, and we'll go from there. Season 1, I talked about it. It was very dark. I think that was the part that was like overall like what was kind of keeping me uncertain about it. But it had this kind of eerie kind of storytelling way of making me want to come back and watch each episode. Season 2 was nuts. It was awesome because it completely took everything that The Leftovers was building upon and said, frick that, let's do something over here.
And did you remember?
So can I just start with season 2?
No, don't do that.
But did you know this, Jacob? I think I might have told you, but season 1 is based on the original like book.
Yes, so you told me this. You told
And
me this
season
last time.
2 and 3 are off the rails. That's Damon Lindelof,
Yep.
creator of writer of Lost. Is like that's when they just create their own story
But
using
they-
that as a base. The first
They
season.
did a great job, using season 1 as a base. And
yeah, it's
that's
awesome.
why now I looking back on it, I love season 1.
Yeah.
Because it makes so much sense now. It makes so much more sense on everything they were doing. And I'm not gonna like get crazy. So season 2 I felt like was a constant upward roller coaster in the sense of like I was constantly getting like you guys are on a roller coaster and you're like you're looking up at the top and you know what's coming.
Yeah.
You know what's coming, but you're still making your way up there to it, and you enjoy like you look off to the side and you enjoy what you see, and the fleshing out of characters in that season was a true joy. Like each character got their own time to shine, got their own time to really tell a story. Some characters got like a side episode in itself. Like it was awesome. It was really cool because you really got to understand what made these characters like. There was one character in particular that I didn't think she was really much of anything in season 1, maybe like more of like a B character.
Yeah.
In season 2, she became a character. Like she became an essential part of what it was and everything else in between, like of what Leftovers were. And then you boil down into season 3, and this is where I can see the argument some people would make, like which season's better, season 2 or season 3. And when I got into season 3, I was not ready for what they were anticipating or what they were trying to accomplish. But man, I enjoyed it.
I would say season 3, that meme of like the galaxy brain, like season 3 is the galaxy brain and all the stars around it. Like it just goes off the rails. But at the same time, it has one of my favorite episodes of television of all time. Dude, all I'll say is Hotel.
Yes.
That's one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh. The crazy part about all of it was like I wasn't ready for what they were going to build off of it.
Yeah.
Like because you almost think like everything's good now, right? Yeah. And it's not. Like but it tells again, the story it's telling was always the internal conflict, because remember the whole show is based on the idea of like what if 2% of the world disappeared out of nowhere? How would you cope with that?
Yeah.
Like Zach, how would you cope with Travis? How would you cope with that? And what it did a good job of saying, like in season 3, was like, you think you're good.
Yeah.
You're really not. Like and the final episode, the last 15 minutes of that episode.
What do you think of that?
I don't want to ruin it. I want Travis to watch it. I do. I can tell you like right now. Like
I'm excited for all of us to talk through it. But
I hope like you take some time if you get free time and watch it.
I got some time. We're gonna watch it. I've said my piece about the pilot.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate my feelings on the pilot ever changing. I think it's a terrible introduction.
I can understand that.
I thought everything from the way they introduced the characters and the scripting and the scenario and the fighting with the people from the little clan and I felt like there's a guy named David S. Goyer, and he's a writer. He's paired up with Christopher Nolan a couple times, but he's also made some of his own stuff too. And he's a writer. I can always tell when he's involved in a project. He did Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. He was a writer on those, and they always like appeal to this like Christ imagery and like this thought of like just like when people yell corny stuff like "We're not for the mutants," just like whatever stuff like that happens in a movie, and you're like, "Geez, I get it." Like he's like the king of that, and this pilot just had so much of that. Like people yelling on the street, and it's like, I get it. Like I understand you were hitting this
But-
thing with a sledgehammer, so I understand what you're saying, which is that's just the pilot. You get to know the characters more, which there is 60 hours of, I've watched 1 hour of 60 hours, right? Like there's a ton more with these characters. I get it. I'm sure that it's great and we will watch it. But I walked away from that pilot thoroughly unimpressed and not interested in continuing.
I
So,
exactly know what you're saying in a sense of like the people like, we're not for you. But I think knowing what I know now, like this was based off of the book and it was pretty much to my point to the T.
I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that that they, they were figuring it out and they were trying to figure out how to start it. So we're going to pick it back up. We'll finish season 1.
I'll tell you right now, the ending of the show is a great redemption point for what's his name's like history of bad endings.
Lost.
Like-
Who?
Yeah.
I thought Lost was a great ending. So I think me and Zach Pike might be, I guess we're the only people that feel that way.
I don't think it was a bad ending.
I see
just
people
don't think
say it was a bad ending all the time, and that ending made me cry. It makes
I
me
just
cry
think
every
like
time
the
I watch
ending of
it.
this show for me, I was sitting there and
It was
like,
good.
It ended, and I had a lot of different emotions.
Yeah. People are split on this ending too, which I think is interesting. But for you, it worked, which is good.
Yeah, well, I think I
Zach,
understand.
do you like the ending?
Leftovers? Yeah, I do. It's definitely I had to chew
Better
on.
than Game of Thrones?
Yeah, it's a chew on.
You had to really chew on
you
it.
had
to
chew on it.
Yeah.
Because if you get to know the character, that's the issue. The character behind the ending is what makes you sit there and chew on it.
That's how Lost is too. It's all about the characters.
But I think I'd been saying this recently when freaking Game of Thrones totally fumbled their like wrap up.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people went back to Lost and went. I was seeing tweets from some people, and I was like, that wasn't as bad as we thought. The people that didn't like it at the time were like, we were actually wrong about Lost or whatever. Like,
people kept waiting for a magic rabbit to come out of the hat with Lost and like explain a lot of things, and I didn't think that's what they were really wanting to do. They were wanting to give a emotional resolution, which they did great.
Yeah.
All right, I will watch it, but I've been watching something way more crazy and more interesting in the meantime.
Nice.
Tiger King.
I have watched it too. We finished it. You're a couple episodes in.
Yeah. So I'm 3 episodes in. Zach Pike's watched it all the way through. And Jacob, you haven't seen this yet?
I have not. I have heard it's basically meth and tigers and cousins loving each other. Like, am I right?
Yeah, I don't know what there is to say. I mean, it's kind of the show of this moment, with the quarantine going on and everybody's at home. I had a coworker mention it to me last week on Monday, and so I didn't really get it, but she was so emphatic that I should watch it. Normally I don't do that when people recommend things, but I told her, I was like, yes, I will check it out, right? And then I just turned it on with Jess in the room that day, and after 1 minute I texted Zach Pike. I was like, dude, this has got you written all over it. This guy, this scenario, this is absolute chaos. This guy is a creative force, and he's with other people that are awful people, but they're also, to a degree, creative forces, and this is madness. So
the show is about this character, Joe Exotic.
He's not a character, though. He's a person. It's a documentary.
Yeah, he is a real person.
So somebody described it to me, and I thought it was a comedy show. I thought it was scripted.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was real.
This guy, Joe Exotic, he owns a private zoo. And the documentary is exploring Joe Exotic and other private zoo owners and the weird, violent, insane drama between all of these private zoo owners. Every episode goes deeper into the hell of this. And it's like, what is going on?
It's like an alternate universe, and you can't believe it's happening in your universe.
And everybody involved, you're just like, why do they have access to animals? What is that? What is that?
How do they have 100 tigers and they can breed them?
Yeah, but the whole show, I think, is held together. The whole documentary, the thread that holds it all together is Joe Exotic, who is basically this very wildly Trump-esque, wild, like doesn't care what people think, like out there, outlandish
He's got
kind of guy.
he's got the tiger blood, or what did Charlie Sheen,
Yeah, he's
or
got
was it,
tiger
or
blood.
was it Kanye? He's
Yeah.
got that Kanye, Trump, Charlie Sheen
Yeah.
blood in him, where he just doesn't care. He don't
He
care
doesn't
at
care. There's shocking quotes from this man, but there's also you will laugh, you'll be shocked, and we sat through. We watched I think the first episode, second episode back to back, and then we just binged the rest of it because it was so good and so like enthralling. And but very good, very good, good time. You will not have a bad time, guaranteed. You will not have a bad time. Watch this.
I do wonder. I don't watch enough Netflix content, and everybody who makes a documentary is their own person, whether or not Netflix publishes it. But like, is this show actually that awesome? Like, I like it, but or is this part of the quarantine? It happened to launch right when the quarantine happened. Like, is there other stuff like this on Netflix that people don't talk about? This seems really high quality. Like, it's really well made.
That's the thing, though, is like Netflix will put out stuff like this, and it's honestly it's kind of, let's be honest, it's a little janky. Like,
this isn't. No, this is well made. No, you haven't watched it. It's well made.
No,
I've
talked to people about it. I can at least say this part. I think the quarantine has helped escalate the stupidity of it.
Yeah. Well, I think the quarantine has made people more available to watch it. But my main question, I guess, let me phrase it a little differently, is are there other, like, is this typical of Netflix's quality of documentary? Because I see they have tons of documentaries, but I don't watch a lot on there. I know you watch like Wild Country, Making a Murderer.
Yeah, the best.
The Aaron Hernandez one was crap. That was bad. That was just wasn't good.
The ones that rise to the top that you see recommended by friends or memes on Facebook, that's just people, generally enough people watch that and it's like, this is very good, it's worth talking about, and they rise to the top. I think that's what happened
you're
with
right.
this.
The fact that people are talking about it.
People watch this and was like, this is just very entertaining. It's extremely entertaining. It has that niche thing of like, well, who is there? This was going on in the tiger world, and
this thing has become this will be one of the defining cultural things people talk about. 2020, that was when Tiger King came out and everybody was talking about Joe Exotic.
But what was funny, somebody I used to work with texted me about this. Have you seen this? I was like, yeah, and we were talking about it, and he said, I forgot. And as he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I do remember it now. Well, I don't want to spoil something, but one of the people in the I'll just spoil this one part. Who cares? Joe Exotic actually runs for a local kind of government thing, like
my god,
in the show. And I remember that actually happened, and it was on late night shows and stuff. They talked about this guy, so he was already like kind of a figure, like a little blip on a radar stuff. So he mentioned that, and I was like, oh, shoot, that did happen. So it's funny he got kind of a reignition.
That's hilarious. I didn't realize in the first episode where they start showing them on Jimmy Fallon and Doc Antle's on Jimmy Fallon, or on these, or not Jimmy Fallon, but, Conan or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, these guys are already kind of, known. They're not,
they kind of already were. Yeah. So
dangerous people.
Yeah. So Jacob, do you want to talk about the one on there?
Yeah,
so
just Vice came out, and they finally it's been anticipated for a while, but I don't know if you guys know about this. There was a wrestler back in like the early 2000s or the 90s. His name was Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
And a tragedy happened with him and his family. It was a murder-suicide. He ended up killing his wife and his youngest and taking his own life. Very, very popular wrestler. One of the all-time best wrestlers of all time. Considered to be a technical genius in a sense of like wrestling. There's a mosquito and it's driving me nuts. I don't know why he got in my house. So he was great. Well, when that stuff happened, a lot of things happened, not only to the wrestling industry, but a big like spotlight on just entertainment and the pressure put on physical performers and stuff like that, and how media portrays certain things. Vice came out and said, hey, we're going to do a documentary about the whole situation and talk using his son that wasn't killed. His son was part of this documentary, and he gave his take on everything that happened. And it started from like, it was really, really good.
It's on my list. I will definitely watch it.
I don't. Do you know about Chris Benoit, Zach? Do you know
I'd heard about this. I knew what had happened or whatever. So
yeah, I want you to watch it. We can talk about the whole scenario a little bit more. because I don't want to, like, if you don't know the story, if I spoil a little bit of it, I don't want to do that.
We'll talk about it full next podcast, but
if
not
you're
to
not,
cut you off, but I definitely want to watch it.
Yeah, if you're not a wrestling fan in any way, like, I still recommend this because Travis, I don't know if you you know about CTE, right? Because NFL,
Yeah.
this has a big spotlight on CTE a little bit too. So
I was going to ask that if they broached that subject.
they did, because the biggest point of this was all based on steroids. That's what it went down to.
I'm not, and I don't mean to be like that guy. I think CTE is a problem, and I think that it's important that the NFL and different leagues, I think other leagues need to take it more seriously, because NFL is the only one that gets hit with it, but NHL, MMA, like, they all have to deal with it. But I always have an issue when they start to bring up the subject of the CTE as the cause of the murders.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've done that with OJ a little bit, and they've done that with this guy, because it's very offensive to the other thousands of players that play in the NFL and play in the NHL, do MMA, that never hurt anybody in their life, and they also have CTE. So I always find when the way documentaries handle that interesting. Whereas in the WWE, I don't know this
CTE
guy's,
for people that don't know?
CTE is a brain condition where anytime you have blunt force trauma to the head repeatedly, your brain hits up against the side of your head, right?
Yeah.
So and actually a lot of people don't know this, but even if you are driving a car and you slam on your brakes really hard, your brain is going 70 miles an hour. If you come to a sudden stop, your brain will hit the front of your skull. And if you do that repeatedly, playing a sport or hitting your head or your helmet or whatever the activity is that you're doing, your brain, after it gets hit, it loses fluid over time. It starts to become a little more dry, and parts of it can become kind of like dark gray and kind of like not healthy, basically. And so what they've started to do is as NFL players die, they've started to observe this activity. You can't really observe it unless the person's dead and you can actually take the brain out and look at it.
Yeah.
But they're finding that football players, boxers, NHL players have a higher level of this observable trauma on their brain. And so there's also doctors working to show how this creates cognitive behavior issues. It can have an earlier onset of Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's. It's just not good for your brain. Like, your ability to reason, your ability to handle your temper, your ability to not get these debilitating mental diseases. So all of that is genuine research, and that is important. And I think it's NFL. They've done a lot of work trying to take the head out of the game. So tackle more with your shoulders. You wear your helmet for protection, not so you can use it as a weapon, that kind of thing. But in these documentaries like OJ and Aaron Hernandez, you start to see a narrative develop where they say this person committed murder because their brain wasn't working properly because they had CTE. But if you actually stop and say, well, that might have been a contributing factor, but they also were involved with gangs, not OJ, but they were involved in gang activity from 18 years old. They were around people that owned weapons and also didn't play football at all, were shooting people in the street. Like so I would be curious for this Crispin Benoit, if that's his name, like, CTE may be a factor, but he also might have been an alcoholic. He might have been a drug addict. He might have had really bad influences in his life.
Sounds like none of that helped.
He might have been beaten when he was a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I always am curious how they handle CTE, because I've seen a couple times where people use it as like, OJ killed his wife and Ron Perlman because he had CTE. And it's like, if you watch a documentary, his issues go way deeper than just that.
I don't think from my overview standpoint, there's a lot of contributing factors to what Benoit did. I do think Benoit was not in the right state of mind, and it sucks. It doesn't justify what he's done. It's terrible, and it was.
Was he a steroid user?
He was.
That's huge. That makes you have dreams about killing people and
stuff.
But
there's a lot of things that go into that. If you guys don't know this, and you'll find out, Benoit used a move called the diving headbutt. And what it was he would get on the top rope and really jump off the top rope and only use his headbutt and strike his opponent with it while they're laying on the ground.
That might have been ill-advised.
Sounds like a coronavirus challenge move right there.
And because of that, people have always said that, well, professionals have said Benoit, at the time when they moved his brain was like a 90-year-old Alzheimer's patient. And he was only like 30-something. That's how sad his mental capacity was. There's a lot of other contributing factors. You guys should really watch that.
Yeah,
I really recommend it. And Vice did a great job. Vice always does a great job when they do the documentaries, and they did this one a really good job.
Yeah. Speaking of Vice, real quick, So I'm a big fan of Vice's like show that they had on HBO.
Mhm.
Well, they actually like canceled their season with HBO and they got moved over to Showtime. That's about to come out. They're about to start their 7th season
Oh wow.
on Showtime. And I was telling my wife, because we love like watching those, like they'd come out weekly and stuff on HBO. And I was like, hey, Vice is about to start. And each episode is sometimes about how the world is just sucking at like either global warming and stuff. And I told her that, and she was like, I can't watch Vice right now. And I was cracking up.
No.
I was like, there's no
Dude.
way I can watch it right now. But I'm
Dude,
going
I
to watch it
watched-
still, and I'll let you know how it goes.
I watched like the first season of that a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and I wasn't up to date, but I was just watching it, and I watched 5 or 6. I was like, these are really well made, and I should continue to watch these, but I never watched them and didn't walk away with a feeling of like,
Dread.
this
Like,
is terrible,
yeah.
and
There is a lot of that, but there is they did better in more recent seasons of balancing out with like, we're about to cure like cancer and stuff like that. They do a whole like big thing
Gotcha.
on that, and like we're really close to that, and like all these really cool things, technological.
is that on HBO Max?
It's on I don't know what Bax is. What's Bax?
Max.
Oh, Max. I thought you really said Bax. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
And that's how you watch it. Yeah.
Yes. No, it actually is. Yeah. But yeah, that's coming out for Showtime and
Cool.
whatever.
I'll get Showtime Max then.
Mhm.
Get Bax and get HBO Bax while you're at it.
Get
Yeah,
HBO
all
Max.
over it.
Yeah. So I'll let you know how Vice turns out. Maybe they'll have it. Their season finale has to be coronavirus stuff, right?
I mean, you'd assume, but it would just be this. It'd be people talking from their computers at home.
It's bad out there. It is. Yeah. And then I just had 2 things I had watched, other shows. Barry season 2. Me and my wife, again, with all this quarantine stuff, was like, let's just finish it up. So we watched the first season, and I liked that show, and there were some like really funny and great parts. The show's about a hitman. Was once in the Iraq War, all this other stuff, and now he just got wrapped up in like being a hitman. Travels to LA to like do a hit, and gets wrapped up in the acting world, and he starts becoming an actor. And it's like
wow.
part comedy, very funny, part like drama.
No, that
So,
sounds kind of
like,
cool, actually.
Think Breaking Bad mixed with like, I don't know, just a comedy, just a regular like funny
That sounds
show.
kind of cool, actually.
But it's Bill Hader, I think is his name,
Yeah.
from SNL. He's the main character, and he wrote it and he directed it. He's like all involved in this. But season 1, I wasn't like floored by, and I was unsure about the show at first. I'd probably give that like a 3, 2.5 out of 5 kind of overall. This season 2 is where it like stepped up to like, it loved playing with, like, there was parts when me and my wife were like crying, like keeled over, laughing out loud. Like there is some absolutely like hysterical stuff in this season 2. Along with that, the drama part of it, I think, is a much better. You care for these characters a lot better in season 2. It's a lot better of a season, I think, in season 2. But freaking really enjoying this. They play with the concept of like, so he's acting on stage and telling things, but at the same time, he has to hide that he's a hitman, right?
Mhm.
He can't say, I've killed people and did this in the war and did certain things. So you get to see like he twists the truth, and everybody's trying to find the truth and acting mixed with like the horrendous things that people do. Awesome. The way they play with that the whole season is very.
How long are the seasons?
First season was like 8 episodes. This one's only 8 episodes or something, but
Cool.
I do recommend that show now. And then the other show I watched, the last show I'd watched was Westworld season 3. Westworld is back. They took a 2-year hiatus, and this season, much like season 1, so season 1 is Western and the robots, and it's very
What
based-
happened with that show? I remember it being a Western. I saw the preview for this. It looked like Blade Runner.
Season 2 turns into Lost level, can't keep up with it, kind of like. I loved it for that, of like what's going on here, and theories and crazy Lost theories coming out. Season 3, Aaron Paul is a major character now, and all of Aaron Paul's stuff, and there's other stuff. There's different characters now they're following, kind of like Game of Thrones, and then there's different cast of characters. It is Cyberpunk 2077.
Wow.
Almost to a scary like comparison level on certain like characters you see and stuff that I've seen in the trailers for Cyberpunk. It's awesome. It is very awesome. Like I'm already in. Like there's
Maybe
only
it's
two.
worth me catching up on this show. This is one that I've wanted to watch for a while.
Absolutely, I think you would love this, Travis.
Yeah.
But season 3 is cyberpunk, and it's really like the settings you're seeing in season 3 are crazy. It looks so futuristic, like how it's supposed to be in the show, and they said there's like a little behind the scenes at the end of every episode, like how they did the episode, and it's all Singapore. It's all in Singapore, and I was like, this looks like they're living in the year 2050. Like some of the architecture and design.
A lot of that kind of, and it comes from Blade Runner. Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner, had a lot of like Asian kind of influences to
Yeah.
what it did with the design, and so then that extrapolated across to like other places when they do this type of thing.
Yeah.
They use that same kind of style, so I'm not surprised to hear they use Singapore as a base.
Yeah.
Probably CGI'd some stuff
One
in.
thing I was worried about was season 2 got crapped on because it was hard to follow. I like that because it was deep. It was deep television. It was deep lost level of theories, and you have to really pay attention. Season 3, I was worried like, we're gonna try to lessen that up. No, I still at times don't know what's going on, and I have to watch like recaps and stuff to really catch up on stuff. So
That sounds cool.
it's good.
Shoot.
But you mentioned Blade Runner.
Yeah, I actually watched Blade Runner 2049, getting into movies. I've been waiting to watch that one for a long time. It was one that I skipped in the theaters, and I felt bad about that because it bombed. I mean, my ticket wouldn't have made a difference. But Denis Villeneuve, he made – first movie I saw by him was Prisoners, which is that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal where that guy,
seen that.
Gerard Zach,
Gotta watch
Prisoners is it. You'll never want to watch it again, but it's so tense. But it is the best. It's the best I've ever seen a movie handle kind of like a child being kidnapped kind of movie.
Better than Taken?
It, a large adult child, yes, better than Taken. That movie's fantastic. But he also made Arrival. He's making the new Dune. He made Sicario, but then he made Blade Runner 2049 based on the first Blade Runner. I'll say for me, I would say my feelings on the movie are very positive. I like it a lot. I like it a whole lot, and it's maybe my favorite production in terms of like set design. Just the way that the buildings are, the cinematography, the way that the world's stitched together. They do a great job. I mean, Blade Runner it takes place in 2019. November 2019, but it's kind of that futuristic style because it was made in the 80s. This one takes place 30 years later, and they did a great job of marrying like that physical kind of like 80s tech with what we consider modern now.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Right? Like if you think about it, like Star Wars came out in the 70s, and it was like that kind of futuristic 80s kind of like equipment and like analog. Or Alien's a better example. Like if you watch the first Alien, it's got all the ships are like very tactile, but then you watch Prometheus, which I like, but it takes place before Alien and everything looks all sleek and futuristic, and you can't marry the two. This does a great job of like taking what you had in the first Blade Runner, bringing it to what we would see as futuristic now, but marrying it all together so that it still feels like the same world. It's fantastic. I really like it a lot. The only really thing I didn't like was the way they kind of tie up the actual literal like plot. I kind of felt was a little I don't know, it felt just off to me. I don't know, they kind of like they have you thinking it's one way, like the main character's connection to the first Blade Runner is one way, and then later in the movie they kind of make you think, oh, that's not how it is, okay, but then they kind of bring a character in that they showed for a minute earlier in the movie, and they say, this is actually, the person that's the big deal. And I was like, okay, I could have maybe just never known who the main person would have been. Like, I didn't need it to be one of the 8 people I saw in this movie, and especially not that person. She was fine. But so I just kind of felt like they were like, this is how we're going to really blow their minds at the end. And it just didn't fall for me. It was like, okay, like I buy it. I believe that that's who that is. But it just felt like in a movie where everything felt so effortless and just well made, it felt contrived. It just felt like they had to bring the plot full circle, when I thought a perfectly suitable ending would have been just having the main character realize he's not the center of this whole story. He's just a guy, and he played a part, and it ends. I won't get
Yeah.
into the actual literal what happens, but so that was my only complaint really, was that it felt contrived at the end. Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford in it. He is the same person in everything he's in nowadays, and I love it. He's just old and grumpy, and he's perfect at that. And I think Ryan Gosling gave a good performance as this. I don't think it's a spoiler to say he is a replicant, because they pretty much tell you right out of the gate that he is. They don't try to hide it. But in the world of Blade Runner, the replicants are like these androids. And so I thought he did a great job of conveying like a modern replicant that kind of has what could be kind of described as attachment or feelings, but he's not a human really.
Yeah.
And they do a really cool thing with his like girlfriend in the movie, where she's like an AI that has a projection of a body, but like he can project her onto other people. There was just great like technology, stuff I'm dying for. I can't wait for Cyberpunk. I know they're going to mess with that kind of stuff. And that is my favorite. I love sci-fi and I love that stuff. Old school fantasy is cool. I'll play The Witcher. I'll watch Lord of the Rings, but I like future. That's the stuff I really get excited about.
Yeah,
if you're into that, Jacob, you might like Blade Runner. It's long as crap. Very long movie.
Yeah, I've heard
You've got
about
time. Jake,
I watched it in 2 chunks. I watched it in 2 hour-and-a-half chunks, and I watched half of it one day, and then like 3 days later, I watched the rest. So.
I'm pretty sure Triple H is in one of them, if I remember correctly.
It's Dave Bautista. And
Dave Bautista. Okay.
Yeah, he's in Blade Runner 2049.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
Triple
he
H
was.
isn't one though.
He is I love when he is in a movie and it's kind of like that physical presence, like the bodyguard or the guy that's got to beat somebody. He does a great job.
He's awesome, but I probably won't watch it. But thanks for recommending it.
Yeah. And then that was good. And then the only other movie I watched this month, technically last month, but I wasn't here, was I watched John Carpenter's The Thing, which is John Carpenter's the guy that made Halloween 1 and 2. And this was his immediate movie after Halloween. So it was his second movie, I think. He might have had one before Halloween, but I'm pretty sure it was his second movie. And you could tell that he, 1, made some money on Halloween, and 2, felt comfortable to go out there and do whatever the heck he wanted. Because The Thing is a pretty ballsy movie. The whole thing takes place in like Alaska or like the South Pole, and it's like 12 guys are there and they're all drinking Jack Daniels or drinking whatever. Every shot in that movie, the people at the base, they have a bottle of, they all have their own, but they have a bottle of like some type of whiskey or alcohol. Alcoholism is definitely a theme in the movie, and just how people try to drink away their problems and live in isolation. But basically the movie starts and there's these 12 guys living out in the South Pole, and they're on a science research project, and a dog runs up into their camp, and there's a crazy guy following the dog. He flies in on a helicopter and he's shooting his gun at the dog, and the people are like, what is this guy doing? And he's starting to shoot at the dog and shoot at them, and they shoot him and they kill him. And they go to the camp where the guy came from, and it's a disaster. And the dog they put with their other dogs that they have, it's like a Siberian Husky, and that dog is not what it seems, and it mutates and morphs, and it wrecks their life basically. And the whole movie is so good because basically there's a virus that's infecting people, and you don't know who has it, but when they have it, they're acting normal, but then somehow their body will like expand open, and like
is there social distancing in this film?
Yeah, there is social. They actually do. They social distance people they think have the virus. And there's a really great gag where they basically like push this guy out, and he's the doctor, and he's lost his mind. He's this big, and they lock him in a cabin, and they come back like, 30 minutes later in the movie to check on him, and he's sitting there and he's playing with these toys, and he's hung a noose behind him, but he's not hung himself yet, and he's like playing with something. So, you okay in there, Doc? He's like, I'm fine. He's already built a noose, and he's set it up to hang himself later. And it's really good. It's a fantastic horror movie. It has the best practical effects I've ever seen in a movie.
I've never seen this movie, but the GIFs I've seen of it online,
it's so unreal what they were able to pull off.
what they did.
I would consider it, and this is why I watched it, because I'd never seen it. I'd consider it essential viewing, right up there with the original Alien, you know, that type of.
Yeah.
It's just really good. It's just well made. It's got Kurt Russell with a big beard and a flamethrower running around. So yeah, it's good. I like the thing a lot.
All right. I think that about wraps up our first quarantined social
first and last.
distance. And I think it might not be our last,
Yeah,
but
I think it's our last
podcast. But I want to say thank you for watching. I want to say also we have a Twitter, DweeBoYT on Twitter. You can find out when new podcasts come out, when we're doing Hangouts, which is the show where pre-quarantine, I had people like Travis and Jacob jump in, and we would talk through a game and commentate. I've been doing those Hangouts still, but just kind of talking to the chat. And I think there is a way, if you guys want to jump in, I can have you on an iPad, and we could still do the Hangouts.
Yeah,
live.
we could do that, and we could still play multiplayer online Hangouts
yes.
too.
So,
Destiny.
like we've been
we
doing,
could do a Halo one.
We've been doing Halo. Maybe we'll just do a strict like Halo one, and I'll figure out the camera and stuff. So, there's just multiple ways to see us on DweeBoYT on Twitter, and then also stay tuned. Maybe there's more streams. Like I said, I've been doing actually breaking tradition of only Thursdays doing Hangouts. Maybe you'll see more Hangouts and stuff from us. More stuff, more content from the boys.
More content.
Who knows what you'll see? But
like a dog.
Like a dog. Maybe we'll just do a show. Jacob's going to do a show just about that dog's life and just hop it around. You never know.
Guys, I seriously tried my hardest to keep her from.
No, it actually added to the podcast. It was really fun. Cool. Well, thank you for watching. You know what? Last, we did a terrible prediction that we would be past this by now. What is our terrible prediction for next month? I'm going to say that Stadia beats out Xbox and Sony in the sales of their little.
I could see that happening with the current.
That's going to happen for next podcast. Mark my words.
Don't give up on Stadia yet.
I've given up. I was never believing. Did it come out? I didn't even know it came out.
Once those new consoles get pushed back, it's gonna be the only way you can play those. New games.
It's the only way. It really is. Wow, Stadia is gonna win.
They have a shot. I guess they have a chance.
All right. Well, thank you for watching.
Thank you.
And
See you guys rock.
all soon.
Peace.